Okay, so we start our session today with recitation of Umul Kitab Al-Fatihah. Okay, let me pin myself first. Pin and then make myself, and then I open this thing first, and then I make here first, and let me see. Okay, let me make it up for a while. Okay. Okay, so today, in the previous lesson, we learned about what we call the this boundless endgame. So we know the importance of understanding some of the basic in boundless endgame. The basic mates, and then we learn about a few boundless endgame, which is this thing, the one that I show you before. And the most important thing, you need to know how to do the basic mate with the queen and rook, and then for boundless endgame, focus on queen versus rook because it's happened very often. And then rook versus bishop, rook versus knight, and rook versus rook bishop, and rook versus rook knight. Okay, so now this is boundless endgame. So today we will start to put in the pawn lah. Okay, so today is basically about pawn endgame, pawn endgames. So pawn endgame is basically the real basic of all other endgame. Most of other endgame, when you play the chess, at the end of the day, you will become if you have like rook or what they call the queen or whatever with the pawn. At the end of the day, whether you win or not typically depend on whether you can convert into winnable pawn endgame or not. So understanding or mastery of pawn endgame is really important, because it's the basis for all other endgame like bishop endgame, knight endgames, rook endgames, queen endgame, and so on. So that's why it's important for us to study the pawn endgame first. Okay, we study the pawnless first, and now we study the pawn endgame. It's like the building block of all other endgame lah. So it's important to study that. So without further ado, let's start with what we call the most basic thing. The most basic thing we will learn first about the rule of square. This is a rule of square. Okay, for some of you this is maybe quite basic, but so that I will do it very fast because I will not do very slow and so on, because this is a basic. Okay, so the rule of square, the position in front of you is of course illegal position, because there are no white king there, only a black king. So whites goes to what we call here, and then the what we call the idea of the rule of square is basically if the king. So the rule of square is basically the idea is that if the king manage to enter the square, then it can capture the pawn. The pawn without the pawn being supported by its own king lah. So that is basically the idea of a rule of square. If the king managed to what we call to enter the square. So where is the square? So the most easiest way to do the square is just to make a diagonal there. And then let me remove this color first. Okay, make a diagonal there, and then you make a square. So that is the square. So if the king is inside the square or can enter the square, then what we call the king can capture the pawn without the pawn being assisted by the king. So that's the idea. So in this case, you can see the pawn is the king is inside the square of this pawn. You draw the square from this, put the diagonal until the what we call the last rank lah, and then you make a square. So now you can see the king is inside the square. But remember that this pawn on the A2 is a starting point, so you can move either 1 or 2 steps. So when the king, when the pawn is what we call at the what we call this starting point, the square is a little bit different. The square is basically is above here, is what we call is sort of like the square for this pawn actually is here, from here to here, because the pawn on the what we call on this square, on what we call on this starting point can move a second lah. So for example, now it's white to move, so white to move, and then white just play like this. As you can see now, the square here, and then the king cannot enter the square. now black is to move, the king cannot enter the square. So by that meaning that the pawn can queen without help any by others lah. So you can go here, go enter, and then here you can see the square is become smaller, and even the king, the black king still cannot go enter the square, and then the king enter, still cannot enter the square. So the pawn push, and then you can see the square become even smaller there, and then the king still cannot enter, even though now the king black is to move, still cannot enter the square. The square is here, like I say before, so the king cannot enter the square, and then white to move, and then the square is become smaller lah, and then the king even here cannot enter, and then you can get queen, and then you know how to win with the queen and king. So that is basically a rule of square. Okay, everybody knows this. Okay, so now let's see if in this case, let me remove all the color first. It's quite messy there. Let me remove all the color. So if let's say it's black to move, if black to move, then black can enter the square. Where is the thing? Let me remove this first because it's quite messy. Okay, if black to move, black can enter the square. As I said, if the pawn is on the what we call the starting square, the square is one file up, it's like this lah. This is actually the square for this A2 square, because A2 pawn can move to second. So if black to move here, then the black can enter into this square. Okay, so black to move, black can black can go enter the square, and then here the pawn move, and then you can see the square is here, even though now the black is not in the square. But remember, the rule of square is said what? It said if the king managed to enter the square. So this is the key that managed to enter the square. It doesn't say that if the king is inside the square, that's okay lah. But the key is that if the king managed to enter the square. So in this case, it's a black to move, and black can enter the square. So in this case, you can see regardless whatever move here, the king is already inside the square. So yeah, so meaning that the black can capture the pawn. So just here, and then you get here, and then you can capture the pawn. So that is basically the rule of square. It's a basic of all the pawn endgame. Okay, and this rule of square is important, especially when you are racing against pawn. Normally in real games, you are like black and white racing pawn each other to queening, and this rule of square will be beneficial lah. Because normally in chess you need to calculate a pawn endgame. One of the idea of the pawn endgame is that pawn endgame is you can calculate exhaustively, because pawn only move one step forward. So it's not like a bishop, like a knight, that you have a lot of other possibilities. Pawn can only move once and cannot go back. So it's possible for you to calculate until the end. Okay, but calculation can be tedious. So rule of square, we can say, it's like giving the shortcut for the players to know straight away, okay, whether this is winnable or not. In this case, you can see that if white to move here, then we can say that pawn queens. If black to move, the pawn is captured. So that is the rule of square. So we're done with the rule of square. So let's go to the second example, where the rule of square is is applied. Okay, so what you see in front of you is basically the Reti, this is the famous where is the thing? This is the famous what we call the famous Reti study. Let me put here first. This is Reti study. That is basically in 1921. So if you look here, you can see the white goes up. Okay, the white goes up. This is the where white goes, and this is the where black goes. Okay, the green is the where the white goes, and the yellow is where the black goes lah. So if you look here, but by looking here, you can see that what we call this pawn want to move forward. Here, and queen. And you can see this king, the square for this pawn is this. Okay, by looking just like this, you can say straight away that how is it possible for the white king to enter the square? Because it's really, I mean, how come the king can enter the square? And if you compare with the white pawn, if you look here, the white pawn here, the square here, square. So you can see the black is inside the square. So by looking just like this, we can say that okay, black is winning. Why? Because black is inside the square here, so black can simply capture the pawn, while the white is not inside the square, so it's not possible to white to capture this pawn. So the position is win for black. That's what we think from the first glance. But remember that rule of square that we learned before here. When we say rule of square here, you can see we are dealing with only one pawn. But when you have multiple pawn, like in the real game, then there will be some finesse and here and there. For example, here, the white can draw by trying to enter the square. White will draw by trying himself to enter the square of the pawn. So you can see the white want to go to the square of the pawn, and also at the same time when the white is here, you can see also the white can also protect his own pawn. Is near with his own pawn, and then can sort of like assist his pawn to queen. So this what we call chasing two birds with one stone, like that. I mean, white try to enter the square of the h5 pawn, but at the same time by doing so it's also nearer with his own pawn. So this what we call a cut and throw in the chess is what make chess interesting lah. So it's not just like a simple rule of square, okay, I calculate this and win. No, if you have like more than one pawn, then things can become different lah. So for example here, white to move, white can draw by moving this what we call go to the king g7. Okay, the reason why, because he want to enter to the square for this what we call to this pawn. Okay, and also at the same time he want to get nearer with this his own pawn. So he did two things in once. Okay, so now so black, let's say, play like this. Okay, so now you can see the square even smaller here, even smaller. Okay, even smaller. So white, of course, here by looking it cannot goes into the square, but then white can play like this. White can play king f6. Okay, king f6. Okay, king f6. So now, even though the white is not inside this square, but is a little bit closer with his own pawn. This pawn is closer with his own pawn. So that is one of the factor lah. Because black can do only one thing at one time, either capture this pawn or either move this pawn. Black cannot do two things at once. So yeah, need to choose lah. So in this game, you can see that the black choose to move his pawn. So white also move, and then now if let's say black push forward, okay, you can see now is really near to the what we call to the queening square, and the king is very far. This where the what we call the diversion can happen lah. So the king can go to, instead of chasing the black pawn, now the king try to assist his own pawn. Okay, so this king e7 or king e6 is both are winning lah. Not draw. Okay, so let's see king e7, and say what does it mean is that if let's say black push like this, and then white can push. Remember this what we call this check, this queening here with the check. You can see you queen the check. So but so here the what we call the king goes in, and then the king assists, and then queen is draw lah, because it's check, is queening with the check, and then the king can go somewhere else, and then is queen check draw lah. In this position there are no immediate checkmate or immediate capture of the queen, so it's a draw. So that is the way lah. So you can see how by what we call by diverting the pass, then it can assist its own square lah. So that is what if the what we call the black goes forward. So but what if now the black king, instead of pushing this pawn forward like this, what if the king try to capture the what we call the pawn, trying to capture white pawn. So in this case, then white goes to e5. Okay, white goes to e5. Why? Because as you can see, the idea is simple. Just want to go to this to assist, and also at the same time want to enter the square. So there are two things. This king e5, this is the only move lah, because it can do two things at once. Okay, so for example, let's say the king capture, then king enter the square. So this is already inside the square, inside the square, this thing inside the square, inside this pawn square. So meaning that white can capture the pawn. So that's thing. So if let's say black doesn't capture, so we see what happen if black capture. So white enter. What if the pawn move? The pawn move forward, and in this case, of course, the white cannot enter the square of the pawn. So what left for white is to assist the pawn, its own pawn lah, king d6, and then h2, and then c7, and then now both pawn they try to aim for queening. So if this queen and then this queen, and there are no immediate capture of the queen or immediate mat, so this is draw. So this is basically a Reti maneuver, as you can see what I Reti study lah. Reti study the application of rule of square lah. One of the application of rule of square. So that is Reti study. So this is an important study lah, because to show you that even though here you can see that by looking that the king cannot go to into the square, that the white king cannot go to the black pawn h pawn square, but because chess having a lot in this position, there are more than one pawn, then you need to take into account that lah. That's into account. Okay, so that is a Reti study. So we see that one of the application of rule of square. So now let's see something. If you look here, if you look at this Reti study, you can see the shortest path to go to any square, to go to the corner, from the corner to the corner, is basically the what we call the diagonal. You can see the reason the king must go here, because if the king goes here, then is a little bit far from his own pawn. Okay, that's why the king must go here, is nearer with this pawn and also nearer with this pawn. Okay, so you need to choose the move that is most optimal. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next what I call next example, also related to the rule of square. Rule of square. Okay, as you can see here, this is a position where what we call white to move. Okay, white to move. If you look here, white to move. Okay, so you can see white have a pass pawn. This is what we call the pass pawn. The pass pawn is basically a pawn that have no pawn hinder it. So that's what we call a pass pawn. So as you can see here, this pawn, if you make a square, you make a square here, make a square here, make a square here, make a square here. Okay, so we said that what we call the pawn at the second rank, I mean the initial position, the square is not here lah. The square for the second rank pawn is basically starting from the third rank, because this pawn, what we call this pawn sort of like can what we call can move second twice in the beginning, right? So we have learned before that the initial pawn here, the square is basically this, the one in the yellow here. But as you can see here, the king is well inside the square. So by right, the king can enter the square, can what we call can capture this lah, because this is outside pass pawn. Outside pass pawn is what we call the pass pawn, and also outside pass pawn. We can call it outside pass pawn also lah, this thing. So outside pass pawn is a very what we call very big advantage lah, because the king you will be diverted by this distant or outside pass pawn. For example, here is so far, the pawn is so far, and there are no one hinder it. So the king, like it or not, need to sort of like go here in order to prevent the queening. Okay, this king, this what we call this pawn here, this pawn here, the black pawn, is not really outside, meaning that this king is already in front of it. So meaning that at least the king is already there. But here, they are for this pawn, there are no king in front. So that's what we call the outside pass pawn, can divert your king away lah. But if let's say you go straight away like this, then white can just go inside, because you can see now the square, so well inside the square, and then go inside, go, and then can capture. So as you can see here, from the corner to the corner, from here, for example, the idea for this pawn is to go to this what we call queening square. So the shortest path for this square is basically from the shortest path from this what we call this the red to this green. Let me remove this thing. The shortest path for king to the green is basically what we call the diagonal. Okay, so if let's say you can sort of like what we call block this diagonal, then the king is no time in order to capture the pawn. So what does it mean is that, let me remove all the color first because it's messy here. Okay, so here, if let's say white play what we call, in order to sort of like wait, okay, wait. Okay, so as we can see here, straight away go to the a4 doesn't work because you can just capture. Okay, it doesn't work. But if white can play this thing d5, okay, so by playing d5, now this d pawn is basically already outside the what we call this what we call this king, this black king square. So if let's say black doesn't capture, let's say black goes up, then just pawn lah, just queen lah. So like it or not, black need to capture. But the problem now, this pass is blocked. The pass to this what we call the corner is blocked. So now if white goes here and then go here and then go a5, you see the square here, the king here is denied access to the square, because if the king goes here, then it's not inside the square yet. If the king goes here, it's not yet in the square. So the king must go in diagonal in order to enter the square in this case lah. But the diagonal is sort of like blocked by this pawn. So this is make white able to win lah, because when the king step aside like this, still not inside the square, so the pawn move forward, and then this pawn, you can see the square is even smaller, and then the king is nowhere near this square, and then if the queen want to go inside, just queen. Okay, so and then this is just easy win lah. We learned before lah, the queen capture the pawn and then just do the basic mate. So this is basically one of the something that is related to rule of square also. Okay, you know, from now what we learn on the rule of square is that the first thing is that for the starting point, the what we call the square is starting on the third rank. The idea of the rule of square is here. If the king managed to enter the square, then the king can capture the pawn without the pawn being assisted by any its own king. So that's one. And then we also learn here is that what we call the Reti maneuver. This is a Reti maneuver. When you have multiple pawn on the board, you cannot just simply calculate only for rule of square. You need to consider other what we call other thing also. For example, here the ability for the king to not only enter the square but also to assist its own pawn. So chess is not just a simple arithmetic like that. It's a lot of things. Okay. And then we also learn that you can block the access to the square, the diagonal access by pawn sacrifice like this. So you play this, and then you sort of like block the pass, the quickest pass for the king to the what we call this square at a8, the queening square lah. So that's we learn now. So we learn about the rule of square now. Okay, we learn about the rule of square. So now let's learn about what we call the rule, the key square. What is the key square? Okay, we want to solve this position in front of you. Okay, how you can evaluate this position? Okay, this is white. White want to queen here. In order to win, white must queen the pawn lah, because you cannot win by just using pawn. So the idea is that white need to queen this pawn. But how to play that? Okay, how to play that? So in other words, how to evaluate this position? So to evaluate this position, you can calculate. Okay, you can calculate to the end. As I said, the pawn is it's just move one square ahead, cannot go backward, so it's easy to calculate. But even that here, to calculate until the end is quite what we call tedious lah. So they are shortcut like what we learned before. Previously we learned about rule of square. Now in order to evaluate this thing, we need to learn a few things. We will learn about the key square. We also learn about the what we call opposition. We also will learn about the outflanking. Outflanking, these three things. So in order to evaluate this accurately, this sort of like we can say the what we call the shortcut idea. Outflanking, the shortcut. So before we try to assess this, let's see first what is meaning of the key square here. So what is the key square? So the key square is basically the square by which by which its occupation by king. Wait, let me put in the not bold. The square in front of pawn by which its occupation by king guarantee victory. Okay, guarantee victory. So you can see here, this is the definition of key square. The square in front of a pawn by which its occupation by king guarantee victory. Okay, so for example here, let's say here this position. So you have a pawn here. So the key square is somewhere here, somewhere in the middle of somewhere here. So if the king managed to enter the key square somewhere, so for this e2 pawn, then white will win regardless whoever move lah. Okay, so occupation of the king in the key square guarantee the what we call the victory. So where is the key square? So the key square depending on the pawn, where is your pawn. For example, if the pawn, so if you look here, they are like you can divide the board into half. So for example, 1 until 4, this first rank, this one, we can say the lower half lah, and then we can say this one is the second half. So you can see the yellow one is this if the white pawn here goes to the yellow what we call yellow rank, we call it the pawn is already cross the middle line. Okay, the middle line is here lah, between 4 and 5. Okay, so the rule of square, I mean the what we call the key square. What does it mean? The key square is the square in front of the pawn. Okay, the square in front of the pawn. But where is it? Depending is whether the pawn cross the middle line or not. Okay, for example, so let me put here a paragraph and then let me put here. Okay, if the pawn not yet cross the middle board, the key square is 3 square 1 rank above. Okay, it's quite hard. What we call this thing? Let me put here. Okay, if the pawn not yet cross the middle board, the key square is 3 square the 3 square above 1 rank. I don't know how to make the question, but the idea is this. You see this thing, the pawn is on the, it's easy to show you with the example. So you can see this thing, this pawn not yet cross the middle. So the rule of square, the key square is basically the 3 square directly above the pawn, and it's 1 rank above. It's one rank above lah. So for example, let's say this pawn. Let's say I put this pawn first. So this pawn on the c3, the key square is here. So you can see there are 3 square in front of the pawn, but
one rank above. Okay, so for this, the key square, let me put the different color. For this, the key square is here, here, and we don't have one more here actually, because we run out the board. So to say that the key square for the A2, or this not. For the rook pawn is different. For the rook pawn is different. This is we discuss later. For the rook pawn is different. This only the key square for the non-rook pawn. For the non-rook pawn. For the non-rook pawn. Okay, for the non-rook pawn, if the pawn not yet cross the middle board, the key square is the 3 square directly above the pawn, like this. So this, for this part, this one, the key square is not here. This key square, this is not. This is not. So we will discuss that later. But this is not, because this is rook pawn. This is rook pawn. So we will discuss this later. But for non-rook pawn, if you can see here, for non-rook pawn, if the pawn, let me what we call, highlight that thing. Okay, for the non-rook pawn, the key square is like this. If the pawn is already what we call already cross the middle line, for example here, so the key square for if the pawn already cross the middle, the key square is 6 square in front of it. So in this case, apart from this, this also the key square. Okay, so that is basically the key square for this thing. And for this pawn, for the what we call the G6 pawn, the key square is basically this thing. Okay, so that thing. So the idea is this: if you have the pawn and then you have a king, and then your opponent have the king, if you can put your king on this key square, then you will win. Okay, no matter whoever move, provided that your opponent king cannot capture the pawn straight away lah. If let's say your king is here, and then your opponent can capture this pawn straight away, then no use lah. I mean, just be like ni lah. Okay, without any counterplay and so on lah. So you need to put your king here in order to win that thing. So if you look here, in order to the key square for this pawn is here. Okay, so in order for white to to win this endgame, if white to move, white must go to this square. So white need to sort of like go step into this yellow square lah. I mean this green square lah, the key square for this E2 pawn. Okay, so that's the one thing that you need to know. The white king must go and where? To the key square. Okay, so before we proceed, let me talk a little bit also about opposition, because that's something related. Okay, let's talk about opposition. So opposition is basically sort of like the way to prevent your opponent king to enter the territory. Okay, normally for the king, the territory for the king is 3 square in front of it. So for example, let's say this thing, we know from the rule of the chess, the king cannot meet each other. So the opposition, meaning that you use that rule, the inability for the king to meet each other, to sort of like prevent your opponent to enter your territory. So for example here, this thing we call it near opposition. So in this case, the king is opposed each other. They must be in front each other lah. I mean, this oppose each other. So who have the opposition? So let's talk about opposition. So who have the opposition? So basically the one that move last lah. For example, in this case, if let's say now black to move. If black to move in this position, for this just focus on this queen side, if black to move, we say that white have the opposition. Because why? Because black to move, remember, this is the territory that we want to enter. If black to move, white will able to enter this territory, the one that we mentioned before. Okay, so that's the idea. the opposition prevent, so here is both are in opposite with each other, but having the opposition meaning that you if you are moving last, then you have the opposition. Okay, so for example here, if black to move, then we say that white have the opposition. If in this position white to move, we say that black have the opposition. For example, if black is white to move somewhere, so when white to move, for example, if white to move here, then it will release this, what we call this territory lah. So when white move here, then black can enter the territory. So that's opposition lah. So the opposition is like a technique to prevent your opponent king from entering your territory, which is very important in a pawn endgame. So this what we call the near opposition. What you see here on the king side is a distant opposition. Okay, so distant opposition, you can see near or distant, you can see the what we call the square in between them is odd, ganjil odd. So basically opposition, basically you have a near opposition, you have a distant opposition. Okay, so this the one on this what we call on the right side is a distant opposition. If you look here, all of that have what we call odd square in between. Okay, so odd square in between. Okay, so this odd square in between. So here so let's focus on this thing on the king side. So who get the opposition? It same like before, whoever move last, then he got opposition. For example here, let's say white to move. Okay, white to move, let's say here we focus here, let's say white to move, meaning that black have the opposition. So if white to move here, and then black can push, so now you convert into what we call into the near, from distant you become near, and then white to move again, this is opposition, but white to move, and then white to move somewhere, and then black able to enter the territory. Okay, so in this case it's still opposition, but normally not normally, I mean that this is opposition, and whoever move last got the opposition. In this case, if white to move, let's say white move here, and then the king go to what we call to oppose, and then white move away, and then you get the opposition. This what we call going to the side is what we call outflanking. This what outflanking is basically going to the side. Going to the side after opposition. So we can say opposition is the means, while outflanking is the aims. Okay, so we can say like that lah, because at the end of the day, the purpose of this position, let's say this is territory that this is a territory, let's say this this is territory for both what we call, I mean that the middle thing. So in order to enter the territory, you need to outflank lah. Okay, first you sort of like you in this case you take opposition, and then going away, and then you enter the territory by outflanking. This the concept of going to the side. Okay, going to the side, for example, if the king goes to here, and then this black goes here, so this going to the opposite side into the territory is what we call the outflanking. And normally outflanking is the aims. You do outflanking in order to capture pawn or whatever lah. So that is what we call the outflanking. So here we recap back, this is a near opposition, and this is what we call distant opposition. We also have diagonal opposition and also virtual opposition. Okay, as you can see in front of you now, this thing, you can see this and this king is in diagonal with each other. So and what we call the square in between is odd, meaning that is ganjil lah. So this same idea, the diagonal opposition, whoever move last got the opposition. For example here, let's say white is to move in this position. Focus on this queen side only. White to move. White to move here, meaning that black is the one having the opposition. Because if white move here, and then black can sort of like convert this into the new opposition, and then white goes somewhere else, and then black can enter the territory by outflanking. So that is basically the diagonal opposition. You just what we call convert into the new opposition, vertical or horizontal new opposition, and then you can outflank lah. So here on the king side, you can see this a little bit different, a little bit crazy thing. There are no odd. How can you check odd? What we call because it's not like on diagonal, or it's not also in horizontal or vertical distance. It's in just like, what is this thing? So this is what we call a virtual opposition. If you look here, virtual opposition, you have what we call this all the square. Virtual opposition is this lah. Is basically you are not in the vertical opposition, not in the distant opposition, not in the distant near opposition, but in somewhere else lah. So to get virtual opposition, you put your king. This virtual opposition happen when the king is on the in the what we call in the same color of square like this. You can see this square. You can see the square here, right? Okay. So all the both king are in the same color. Okay, the same corner, the same color corner lah, the same corner color. So here, same like before, whoever move last got the opposition. For example, in this case, let's say white to move. Okay, this we focus here. White to move. White to move here. This position itself is already virtual opposition. Virtual, we put it virtual opposition. I put here virtual opposition. When the king both king at the same color, I mean when they are square, when they are square, and both king at the corner of square which is the same color. Macam faham lah kot. I thought you understand lah. I mean virtual opposition happen when they are a square or rectangle, and each vertex of the rectangle must be same color lah, and the king must be on that vertex, on that vertex lah, bucu tu. So this position here, the one here on the right, is the opposition by itself. So whoever move last get the opposition. In this case, if white move, then we say the black have opposition. Having the opposition is the advantage. So you want to be the one that is move last. Okay. So here in this case, this virtual opposition, for example, let's say the king move, the white is to move. White move here, then the what I call the black can convert into the diagonal opposition. If the king move here, and the black can convert into the distant opposition. If the king move where the king move here, and then the white can the black can convert into the near opposition. So that's why this what we call the virtual opposition, when the both all the corner, the square corner is the same color, and the king stay on that color lah, that vertex, that vertex. Okay, so that is basically the what we call the opposition lah. So we have learned now, what we learned now is basically we learn about the key square, we learn about the opposition, and also we learn about the outflanking. Only then now we can come back to this what we call this our task before. Okay, so how to win this? Okay, in order to win this, you need to understand the concept of key square. We learn about the key square. So the key square for the pawn is on these three square on the fourth rank, and then you also need to learn about the opposition, denying the king from this thing. So let's say white to move is winning because white can enter the key square. White can enter this key square, and black cannot prevent it. That's the reason why white to move win. Okay, let's see white to move. So white just move here, move here, move here, move here, and move here. So now white already in the what we call in the key square. Okay, so because of this, white is win no matter who move now. Okay, when you occupy the key square, when your king is occupying the key square, no matter whoever move now, white still win. Okay, so let's see one example. So now not only is white occupy the key square, white also now having the opposition, because remember white is the one to move. Okay, white is the one to move. Okay, white is the one to move. No, white is the one move last now in this position. Okay, because you can see here this is opposition with each other lah, with each other. So because now black is to move, so white is the one that is move last, so white have the opposition. Okay, so let's say the king, because white having the opposition, the black need to give way to white to enter the territory. So white do the outflanking by that thing, and then king e7, whatever the thing, because black try to sort of like prevent white from coming into his own territory, because white, the idea of the white want to go all the way down so that it can support his own pawn for queening. Okay, so now black try to sort of like prevent that from happen. So we know that the opposition, by using opposition, you can do outflanking later on. So outflanking meaning that you can enter the territory by means of opposition. So now white take the opposition in order to force black to give way so that white can enter. So now king d7 need to give way, and then king f7, king f6, and then king e8, and then opposition again, and then king d8, and then king f7. So now you have what we call white penetrate deep into the black position, and as you can see here, this when the what we call the king, white king is here, white king is cover this pawn, and this pawn can queen there lah, with the support of the king. So now king d7, so king f7, and then king d7, okay, and then e4, and then king d6. Okay, this of course you cannot push the pawn because you can just black just take, so black take this. So this is basically opposition also, but in the horizontal rotated 90 degree lah. So black cannot goes up. Okay, black need to go down and then just move, and then go what we call d8 like that, because now black try to what we call to sort of like gain the opposition, because if white goes here, black goes here. But remember, whenever you move the pawn, for example this pawn here, the what we call this pawn here, the key square is here, but whenever you move the pawn, you change the key square. For example, now you move the pawn, so the key square for this is here. Okay, whenever you move the pawn, the key square change. But here, luckily, not luckily, I mean that is just that the king can enter the key square. So for example, even though the black enter the key square now, but because the key square for this pawn is basically this, and then white can just enter that. So white enter the key square, and as we learned before, the occupation of the key square, regardless whoever move, guarantee the win. Okay, so this is win lah, because the white is in key square, and then king d7, and then e5. Now the pawn already what we call past the not past the middle of the board. So the key square is changing. So the key square for this pawn is here now. Okay, so you can see now the king, our king, the white king is already inside the key square. Okay, so this is win no matter what, even though black have the opposition. For example, black try to make opposition here, even though black have the opposition, because you can see here black is the one to gain the opposition, meaning that the white is the one to move last. But still in this case white is winning, because the key square for this pawn, this pawn is here, is 6 square in front of the king. So the king already there. So no matter whether you get opposition or not, whatever, white will win no matter what lah. Okay, so let's say white black goes here, and then white just go somewhere else, and then king d8, and then you have e6 like that, and then king e8, and then you have
e7. So this what we call the squeezing lah, squeezing, the squeeze. You squeeze the king out, okay? Because if this position you move it one rank up, then this draw lah. Because the king can move back, can move at the back, but here the king cannot move back. Okay, the king must move away. So when the king move away, then king d7. Okay, as you can see here, the reason why this is what we call this is losing is because the king cannot move back. Okay, if let's say here in this here, for example here, for example here, and okay, so for example here, let's say here, white to move, so you see that the key square for this pawn is this, the pawn is not yet what we call reach the cross the middle line. If white make a mistake, for example white make a mistake like this, okay, white make a mistake going here, instead of winning by moving the pawn, changing the key square, let's say white make a mistake going here. Remember, the pawn here, the key square is still here, the key square is still there. So in this case, black can prevent white king from entering this key square by opposition, because when the king is what we call, we learned before, when the king is what we call this, let me put in green, when the king is opposed each other, it also prevent the opponent to come in the territory. So opposition is basically, by having opposition, you denying your opponent to come into your territory. So here in this case, black taking the opposition because white is move first. He is the one that will move last lah. So here black taking opposition. So now the king here are denying the access to his own pawn, the d4 pawn key square. So at this position is draw lah, because if white move here and then the king just move here, because doesn't want to give like what we call the access, this key square still, the key square for the pawn is still there, right? Still there. So still the king cannot enter the key square here. So that's why and then if move here and then just move here, if move here just move here. So opposition, gaining opposition, allowing, preventing the white king from entering the key square. If you move the pawn here, if you move the pawn, remember moving the pawn, changing the key square. So this pawn, the key square is here, the key square is here. Okay, so remember, if you look here, the king here, the white king is not in the key square. Okay, white king is not in the key square, so still this not win lah. Okay, because the king can go here, can go here. Okay, compare with before, when we learned before that you have the big squeeze, the squeeze in the previous we see like here, you squeeze here is losing, is because this what we call this king cannot go back. Okay, cannot go back, so must give way, and then you get win lah. But in this case here, when you sort of like, when you put this position one rank up, for example here, one rank up, meaning that one rank up, this king have the what we call the luxury to go back. Okay, you can go here, here, and here. But here is very important, because it's already near the edge. Where the king goes is important. So the only correct way is this one lah. Is this one. Is this one. These two, this one, in this one is the one in the red is losing lah. Because why? Because if you go to the red here, and the king will we get the squeeze before, like we learned before, it goes here, squeeze the king. Okay, squeeze the king, and the king must go out. Okay, if you go here, same idea, go here, and then you squeeze the king, and the king must go out. Okay, and then the king win lah. So the only way to win is to go to the green ni lah, to the e8 because when you go e8, you go to the e8, if you go here, then you go here, you sort of like gaining opposition, even though you try to squeeze. This is not squeeze because you can enter. I call it melengkapkan L. You complete the L. You see, it's like L, right? It's like the L.
I just call it melengkapkan L lah, completing the L alphabet. Okay, so you do here, and then so here when you can complete the L, then it basically draw lah, because you cannot go here because it's stalemate. The king cannot move here. Okay, so that's one thing. So yeah, if the king move, then the king just simply goes in front of the pawn. So of course the white king cannot go enter the key square anymore. So that is basically the idea of this what we call this thing lah, the how the key square, the opposition play the role. If in this case black is to move, it will be draw. Okay, we see before what happened if white to move, but here if black to move, the evolution will change, because black can sort of like goes up and prevent white king from going to this key square, So let's see, if black to move, let's say black go up, go here, and go where to go? You go here. Okay, because why? Because remember, this is the key square. This is the key square for this e2 pawn. So in order for black to prevent the king from entering the key square, black using the opposition method. So how to do that? You just go in front of the pawn and then in front of the king, so you get the opposition. So the key square for the pawn is still there. So because of the opposition, white king is denied access to enter the territory of black. I mean the key square for this pawn lah. So if the king goes here, then the king goes there. So if the king go here, the king goes there. So the white cannot enter the what we call this thing, the key square for the e2 pawn. So meaning that black can hold this position and draw lah. So go here, and then if you move the pawn, and remember moving the pawn changing the key square. So now instead this key square for this pawn is here. So now the black king is in the key square itself. So it's much harder for white to what we call to sort of like to enter the key square itself lah. So black goes here, okay, still inside the key square. So the idea, the white king want to go to the key square, but because of the black king is already inside the key square, then white cannot do that, and the position will be draw lah, and so on. So that is basically what we call the lesson on the key square. This idea, the key square, the opposition is very critical because every other endgame at the end of the day will sort of like, most of them will convert into the pawn endgame, and this is the most basic of all. Okay, you need to know how to convert your pawn into winning position. If you cannot convert your pawn, then no use lah. So this is the basic of all lah. The key square, the opposition, and the opposition we learn, we have what we have for the opposition. We have this what we call the near opposition, we have distant opposition, we have virtual opposition, we also have diagonal. We also have diagonal opposition, and also we have a virtual opposition here. And opposition when the square is what we call is in the let me put here, where is the thing, this thing. Okay, so this is where what we call the diagonal opposition, this is virtual opposition, and so on. So we have learned about how to deal with this, key square. So if you look here, this key square, as I said before, this for non-rook pawn. If you have a rook pawn, if for rook pawn, meaning that for the pawn on the A file or the H file, this file, for example, for the pawn here, if you have the pawn here or here, then the key square is not like this. The key square is different. For the rook pawn, okay, let me open this first. Okay, for the rook pawn, it's a little bit different. Okay, so this is a rook pawn. You can see here, this H2 is a rook pawn lah. We call it a rook pawn lah, because at the rook is here, right? So we call it rook pawn. If the what we call the pawn is here, is also we call it rook pawn lah. So this is the rook pawn. For the rook pawn, okay, the key square is G7, is in this case is G7 and G8, okay, regardless where is the pawn. Okay, so for the H file pawn, the key square is blah 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 blah, and then for the A file pawn, because rook pawn have two, you have two rook pawn, you have the H file, you can see this H, so on the H file, any pawn on this H file, and also you can have a rook pawn here, any pawn on the A file. So that's why I put here. For the A pawn, the key square is B7 and B8. Okay, regardless where is the pawn. Okay, so this for the rook pawn. So let me highlight that thing. So you can see here this pawn here on this H2. Normally when we this pawn in the center, the key square is what we call 3 square in the 3 square in front, 3 square in front, 1 file ups, 1 rank ups. But for the rook pawn is different. The key square is always here, regardless where is the pawn. The pawn here, the pawn here, the pawn here, the pawn here, the pawn here. The key square always here. Okay, so that is for the H pawn. If let's say you have this, what we call the pawn here on the A file, the key square is here on the B7 and on B8. So meaning that the idea is that your king, the king where you have extra pawn, in this case white, must be on the key square in order to win. Okay, if not, then the opponent can hold the draw lah. For example here, okay, if white is to move, in this case, if white is to move, white will go to this key square. Okay, if black cannot prevent that, then white is winning lah. So in this case, black cannot prevent that. So king G5, and then you go here, and then king E7, and then king G7. So reaching the key square. So meaning that when you reach the key square, then meaning that you can queen the pawn lah, provided that if the king is here, of course doesn't work lah, because you can just eat immediately. So the concept of key square is valid so long that there are no immediate counterplay. In this case, if let's say the king is here, then the concept of key square you can throw into dustbin lah. No need to talk about the key square because they are counterplay. The key square concept is happen if all things equal lah. There are no counterplay by the opponent. So in this case, the opponent, the black, in this case the defender cannot capture straight away, right? Okay, so now king G7 entering the key square. So you see the key square is here. So ensuring the winning. Okay, so let's say the king goes up, and then just push lah, king F5. Okay, here is be careful lah. This is draw lah. This is no, this is not draw. H5 lah. Just push, and then go here, and then push, and then win lah. And then you can queen later on. So that's basically the thing. Okay, for the defender, the minimum the defender can do, but when facing the what we call the rook pawn, is that to go to this square, to F8 or to this. Okay, for this for the H file rook pawn, so the defender must put his king here in order to protect this key square. So when your king is here, when the defender is here, of course white king cannot go to the key square lah. So that's the minimum. So that is basically the aim for the defender. Let's say now is black to move. Okay, black to move here, black can cover the what we call this square by moving to this F8. Okay, so black to move here. Okay, and then king G5, and then king E7, and then king G6, and then you can go to the F8. So here you can see the black is what we call protecting this thing, so that the king here cannot enter cannot enter the key square. The key square, as I said, for this rook pawn is this, the green one lah. So that's the thing. And then if you h4, if you push the pawn, then you can just what we call go to the corner and then just stay there, oscillate here and there. So just h5, h6, just oscillate here and there, just move here and there, here and there, here and there, like that. Because you cannot win lah. Because here in the corner is different. When in the what we call in the middle, if the pawn is in the middle, then you need to consider, you need to worry about the squeezing, right? But here you don't need to worry, because here if you do like this, it's stalemate. If you move away, then it's what we call you can just capture the pawn. So basically it just no ni lah, it just, you just stay on this what we call oscillate here and there, here and there. If let's say here, if let's say instead of what we call, instead of moving the pawn, moving the pawn up, let's say the king goes inside. Okay, let's say the white king doesn't want to sort of like prevent this king from oscillate here and there, then still not work also, because remember the key square is here. White king must be inside, not just kneel, must be inside to win. So in this case, even though the white king can prevent the oscillation of the black king on this g8 and h8, in this position the what we call black can imprison, we call it imprison. You need to understand here the concept of imprison, concept of imprison. First we learn about what? We learn about the oscillating. This the correct or not? I mean that oscillating, the way how to draw oscillating, and then go how to draw defender need to reach the what we call the f8 square, or this c8 square lah, c8 square. I mean c8 square basically for this lah. So this the one that I show you, c8 square or f8 square lah, depending on which rook pawn that you have. So the defender, how to draw? The defender need to what we call how to draw with rook pawn. Defender need to reach the f8 square or c8 square, and then oscillate, or imprison, oscillate or imprison the king. So in this case you can see the white king is imprisoned. If the king goes to h8, just imprison. Okay, just sort of like jangan kasih dia keluar lah. I mean you put the white king into the prison. So king h7, king f7, and then king h8, imprison again, king h7, just imprison. If you move the pawn, then just go here, maintaining the key square, maintaining this thingy. You just imprison, and also at the same time you what we call you maintaining this key square from being fall to white lah. So in this case you can see the king is not imprisoned. The king can go out, but even the king can go out, still this key square is still firmly controlled by the black king. White king still cannot enter this key square. That's why, as I said, this c8 and f8 is the minimum that you need to stay in order to control the key square for this rook lah on the g8 and g7. So just go oscillate. If the king goes out, oscillate. Okay, and then oscillate here and there, and then you can get a draw. Okay, so that is basically the thing lah. So you can see now, previously when if white to move, white can go into the key square, just move here, okay, like that. Okay, okay, but here, okay, so this is what we see before. Okay, the white to move, white win because white goes to the key square. But here, let's say the black goes to e5, here you don't blindly go to the key square. Don't blindly go to the key square, because remember the key square concept only valid when there are no counterplay. Because here is a blunder, because even though you reach the key square for this pawn, but then they are counterplay, because the black king can sort of like go there, and then can sort of like make a counterplay to this pawn lah. So white maybe like panic, goes back there, but then nothing can do, because this pawn will be doomed lah, because the pawn will be doomed, whether it goes twice, you just capture, or single, then you can capture lah, or if here you just go here and then capture and draw. So that is basically the key square for the what we call for the rook pawn. So now we have learned a few things. We have learned that the importance of the key square, the key of all the pawn or winnable pawn in game. You need to enter the key square. Okay, so we see also for the non-rook pawn, for rook pawn, we also learn about opposition, outflanking, and so on. Okay, so that is basically what we have learned now. We have learned about this, the center pawn, the key square, the opposition, and also we learn about this, the what we call the rook pawn, where is the key square, where is the last square that the defender can go in order to protect the key square. So we learn about this, how to win with the single pawn. This is important because that's happened frequently in the practice. When you play a pawn, often that one side get a queen and another side get what we call not yet queen. For example, in the race, for example in pawn race, for example, let me put here in pawn race, normally what happen is that queen versus pawn condition will happen. Okay, when they are pawn race, typically this what you will see lah. The one side will have a pawn, one side will have the queen. So of course, as usual, the queen is stronger than pawn, of course, for sure, stronger than pawn, and normally there are no match lah for the queen. The pawn is no match for the queen. The only time that the pawn can cause issue to the queen is when it at 7th rank, meaning that is near to the promotion itself lah, for example in this case. So here also there are ways to win, so it's not like, of course, white is winner. So let me put in this case, so queen, if the pawn on 7th ring, okay, when the pawn on 7th rank, meaning that 7th rank here in this case, even though you see it's second, but it's 7th rank for the black lah, and other way around lah. So when the pawn is on 7th rank, okay, if let's say the pawn queen win if the pawn is central or knight pawn. Okay, queen will win, always win if the pawn is central or knight pawn. So for example, if the pawn, for example for here black, if the pawn on the 7th here is on this square, the center square or knight square, then the queen always win. Okay, the queen always win if the pawn on the 7th is either on the central square D or E or knight pawn. Okay, the way how to win is simple. But if the pawn is on this what we call on this square, rook or the rook pawn or the bishop pawn, that's a little bit different lah, depending on the position of the king. Then the position can be draw, can be win, depending lah on the king. So we will see that later lah. We will see that the rook pawn and the bishop pawn later. But now we'll want to see here how white to win. Okay, the only way that white cannot win here is that when the position is so bad lah. I mean, when the position is very bad. For example, let's say the king is here, then of course this is draw lah, because the what we call white cannot check. There are no check happen, and then because white cannot check, black can just simply queen the pawn and draw lah. So that's only happen very this is very special case only lah. If the king is here, then the position is draw, but otherwise this position is sort of like winning lah, because how you first check and then king c2 check and then king must move lah. So the idea for this is that you need to force this king to be in front of the pawn. When the king is in front of the pawn, then the pawn cannot push forward lah. So meaning that the moment the king is on here, the pawn here sort of like stop. So now when that happen, this king can move forward, and then this king come out, and then you repeat the process, and then the king keep come forward, and so on. So that's the idea of handling this ending. So you force the king so that the defender king, in this case black, to be in front of the pawn, so that the pawn cannot move forward. So how to do that? You check, the king goes up, and then you attack the pawn, and then the king protect, and then check, and then king goes out, and then attack the pawn, and then near, and then check, and then the king goes up, and then near the pawn. So here you can see now the king must protect lah, and then you check. In this case, the king cannot go to the c5 because you just capture the pawn and win with the basic mat queen versus king lah. So in this case, you are basically forcing the king, the defender king, the black here, to be in front of the pawn. So this moment, the time that you have, the lose tempo, you use this time to move up your king. So and then the black king try to move out, so threatening to what we call to queen by itself lah. So in this case, you just repeat the procedure that you do before. You check, and then force the king to be in front of the pawn. So you check, you can check, or you can just spin. So this another way, you can just spin. Check is also work. You can just check also. It doesn't really matter. You can check, and you go here, and then you do here. Alright, you do here, and then you check, and then you go here. You this thing, and do here, and then here, and then check, and then you cannot go here. You need to, it's same thing, but the same thing as before. But in this case, you can also use the what we call the pinning method. Okay, so this also the method that you need to know lah. Apart from the check also works, meaning that you also win with that, but you can also pin. It doesn't really matter. It depends on the taste lah. Okay, and then king goes to f1 because you cannot queen the pawn when the pawn is pinned. So king goes to f1, and then you check, and then king run away, threatening to what we call to queen the pawn, and then the king try to attack the pawn, and then the king take care of the pawn, and then the queen check, and then now the king cannot go here because the pawn will be lost. The king need to be in front of the pawn. So now you can see the thing is repeated again, and then it's time for what we call for the black to white to move the king up, and this process you repeat again and again and again until the king here is near enough to what we call to support the what we call the queen. Okay, so you see the position is repeated, the same method. Okay, so the same method, you check, and then you force the king to the what we call to the in front of the pawn, and then the king move forward. So now the king is near enough. And then this square is already protected by the king, so the queen can just check lah. The king check, and then goes here, and then goes here. Okay, remember, if there are no pawn, this is draw. If there are no pawn, this position is draw. But because they are pawn, they are not draw. Okay. Yeah, because if there are no pawn, it's stalemate lah. Okay, this constellation we learned before, the triangle here, the triangle is draw. But if you have pawn, then this queen not really cover this square, so this is not draw lah. So and then the king must move, and then you check, and then you mat. So that is basically the idea. The same thing if let's say you have the knight pawn, the same idea. The idea is just this thing lah. Just move, push the king to the in front of the pawn, and then while the king is in front of the pawn, move the king forward, and then repeat the process, and then you do the process. King slowly and surely this thing you will get the king near enough, and then you can use the king to support the queen and then deliver the checkmate. Okay, so here that's the thing lah, you check and then king c2, and then what if, so in this case what if now let's say, okay, let's say now you can also check here, it doesn't matter where you check, it doesn't really matter, but I just want to show you one pattern. If the king goes up like this, then you can just do this thing. I just want to show you one pattern lah. So this a pattern where the queen in square is covered by the queen, and the king cannot sort of like cover that thing, so this win easily lah, because you go here and then you just goes in front, much easier lah. And then because the king cannot go in front of the pawn, and then just slowly move, what we call move the king near, and then later on capture the pawn like that. Okay, so this one pattern also. If the king move up, and then you can just go here. Okay, so the check, wherever you check is up to you, but the idea is simple. Put the king, force the king in front of the pawn, or put your queen in front of the pawn. Put your king in front of the pawn. Okay, so that's the idea of dealing with the central pawn. But when you deal with the rook pawn, the method is different. Okay, when now you have a rook pawn, remember rook pawn is here and here. When you deal with the rook pawn, the method will be different. Okay, it will not because the reason why it's different is because now there are possibility of stalemate. The thing is that if let's say you have, let's say I don't have a king here, and then I try to check, let's say I try to what we call check like this. Okay, and then the king, let's say the king goes here. Okay, imagine the king, my king now is here. Then this position, you cannot bring the king up, right? The king cannot, because the position now is stalemate. The what we call the black king is sort of like imprisoned himself, self-imprisoned, and because of this, you cannot bring the king if the king is here lah. So that's the reason why for the rook pawn, the corner is the blessing for the defender, because in this case, because they are corner, the king, the black king here cannot go out. Okay, if this thing in the what we call in the middle, the position is shifted in the middle, then the king have a move outside, and then the what we call the white can follow the procedure that we learned before lah. But in this case, this is the reason why when you deal with the rook pawn, it's a little bit different. You cannot sort of like simply win like before because of this stalemate thing. Okay, because if you force the king in front of the pawn like this, you cannot even move the king forward due to the stalemate. Okay, so when you deal with this thing, okay, when you deal with the rook pawn, they are winning zone. Okay, the king must be in winning zone. The winning zone for here, I mean, you don't really need to remember this winning zone, but just for this purpose, I just to show you for this pawn, for the pawn on the sevens, the rook pawn. Remember, this only deal with the sevens. If the pawn on the 6th rank, this is a 7th rank, 7th rank for the black. So if this here, then it's a win no matter what lah. I mean, you can just play that a different thing lah. So because the only time when the pawn can cause the issue for the side which having the queen is when the pawn near the promoting square, which is on the 7th rank. So in this case, they are winning square if the king is inside this whatever this thing, inside this sort of like the what we call from this a5 to d5 and this, then the position is winning. The idea for this, to win this against the rook pawn, the idea is that the king, the checkmate will happen here. And the king, the purpose of the king is to sort of like to support the queen, because the one that give the checkmate is the queen. The queen will checkmate here. Somehow the checkmate will happen here. You will see later on. For the rook pawn, the checkmate normally happen here on the c2. On the c2, I mean, if this is the ash pawn, then you just mirror lah. So the reason why the king must be here inside this square is because the king can support the checkmate, because remember that the queen cannot just checkmate by its own, because the king just capture lah. So that's why the king must be near enough for this thing lah. So we see how it does. So you check, the king goes there, let's say king a3, king b1, b check, same like before, but now you cannot use the same idea. Like, I mean, now what we call the king is near enough. Remember, you cannot move the king now because it's stalemate. Okay, the what we call the black king is imprisoned, the stalemate. So you need to be careful now. So you need to move with the queen. You move with the queen. So you can use what we call you can check, go here, check like that. Okay, and then king b1, threatening to what we call to push the pawn. And here is the reason for the square that we learned before. The reason for the square that we learned before. Okay, so the king is near enough to support the checkmate happening here. Okay, so what do? Just king b4 like that. So now even if you what we call you promote with the queen and then king b3, so you can see here the queen doesn't have anywhere to go. Here capture lah, here capture, here capture, here if you go here checkmate here. Okay, checkmate here. So the queen cannot go anywhere. Here. If you go here, checkmate. If you check, makan lah. If you go here, check here, makan. If you go here, take with the queen or checkmate straight away. Here, you just checkmate on the d1. So this is the reason why the king must be in this square, so that when you are here, the king can come in to support the checkmate on the c2. Okay, so here if you put the what we call the knight to prevent this king from here, then this is easy also lah, because the knight in the corner. And we also learned before in the basic mat that the queen always win against the knight. Okay, so that's is another thing. That's the reason why we learn about pawnless endgame first, because you know. But in this case, the knight is dominated lah. The knight cannot move, and then it just simply lost lah. This is not what we call, this is not stalemate, because the knight can move. Okay, and then you can just checkmate. Okay, so that's the thing about this square. So do you need to remember this, what we call this square? No need lah. I mean, if you can remember, that's okay lah. But you just need, when in practical play, you just need to sort of like make the king near enough lah. Okay, if the king here, if let's say the king position is outside, then it's not near enough to support, and the position will be draw because of the stalemate. Okay, so you can try yourself lah using lichess and so on. Okay, so it's basically, once you can see there are two square to support on queen here, and also on the side here, the king need only one square. If the king is here, the king need only one square to support the checkmate here, to support the queen checkmate here. So if the king is inside, it's just only one square. So you don't need to remember this thing, but one way to remember is just you need two square to support the queen on this side, and the one square to support the checkmate from this side. So that's the thing lah. So this is how you checkmate with how is possible to win against the rook pawn. Okay, because if the king is here, then this is draw lah. If the king is here, then it's draw, because you cannot checkmate due to what? Due to the stalemate trick. The black will imprison himself. Okay, so that is the rook pawn. The same thing before for the bishop pawn. Okay, so the bishop pawn is also they are defensive technique. Defensive technique. You can have a stalemate. Because here for the bishop pawn, the king must be here. For bishop pawn, the king must be around here. A2, A4 to the C4. So this C4, and then you have this, and then you have this, So this is basically the square where the king must be located in order to deliver, to win. Okay, if the king is outside this, then what we call the black can draw lah, by means of stalemate. Okay, so as you can see here from this position, what to play. I mean, the king must be inside this square in order to win. Here, even though what to play, but the king is not inside yet, so the position will be draw lah. If black know how to play. Remember, when you play in the practice, not
not everyone know how to play this kind of position, and even though they know, maybe in the time treasure they are forgetting, or they are like blundering by mistake and so on. So keep playing when you have advantage like this, even though you know this is this is drawish because the king is outside the what we call the square. Just keep playing, because in reality, I mean, in practice things can happen differently. So here you check, okay, this is draw, but we want to see how black, why this is draw. So check, and then king a2, and then king c3, king c2, and because aiming to capture the pawn, and then king b1, and then king b3. Okay, here this is the reason why the position is what we call is draw, because now you cannot capture, because this is stalemate. The king cannot go up. Okay, the king cannot go up. So this is the reason. Okay, if you go here, that is a mistake lah, because now the king can just go here and just capture easily lah. So that's one thing lah. So that's why you go to king a1 in order to sort of like to get stalemated if white enter. So because now black is threatening to queen, so white must do something. If white move the king, then queen lah, queen, and then just draw lah. You just queen and draw. So that's why, like it or not, either white need to capture, which give the immediate stalemate, or do something else, maybe check, but then the king go here. Okay, say white use a different method to play. Let's say he want to do a trick. Let's say he want to do this also, the pinning, the method that we learned before. The pinning also prevent the pawn from moving. Okay, so but just go here, same idea, you cannot capture anyway. Okay, so you check, you go here, you queen d3, you b2, and now let's say white use a different trick, want to do here, king e2. Okay, why king e2 we see later on, but still this is draw. I mean, black just go here, just go to a1, then draw lah, still threatening to win lah, to what we call to queen. But if let's say here black make a mistake, black say that this is draw, and then I just don't care, I just play, maybe I just want to play like this, but this is a blunder. Okay, so this is a trick, because why? Because now king go inside, see what we call check, and then you have this like before. You cannot black is loose, because cannot go here, cannot go here, cannot go here, because of checkmate here, because there are two type of checkmate here or here. There are two ways to checkmate. So that's why black cannot prevent, even though black is to move. Okay, you might say, why then this is winning? Is it not that what we call the king is outside the what we call the square? Why that thing is winning? The reason is because of this trick, king e2. Okay, if let's say the king the king is here, the king is here, then this will not work lah, because if you do like this, and then your king goes in, then this queen with queen and also attacking the queen, so the queen must do something. So what we call the white cannot move the move the king, because his own queen is attacked. So that's why this thing, the trick happen at the queen e2. Okay, because this thing. So in order to avoid this trick, just go to the a1, and then there's no trick happen lah, because if you go here, then you just queen, you just queen the thing. If let's say now you capture, then draw lah. If let's say you check, and then you just go up, threatening to what we call to queen also, and then this is draw lah, because the white king doesn't have time to move forward to help the queen. So that's the thing. So you can see from this, you can see the what we call the winning zone. We call it the winning zone in the green. It's a little bit smaller, If you look in this thing, for the what we call for the rook pawn, it's a little bit bigger, but for this thing, the winning zone is a little bit smaller. So but for the
bishop pawn, the king can be here, the king can also be here. Okay, the king can be here, can also be here. So we have seen now the what happened when the king is on this corner. But what if is the king is on the what we call the other side of the corner? Okay, if the defending king is on the other side, the winning zone become a lot bigger, a lot bigger. So basically the winning zone is here. The winning zone for this is here, here, here. A5 to d5, d5, and then you have this, and all this thing inside. So this is the winning zone. Winning zone meaning that what? Meaning that if the king is inside the winning zone, then the position is winnable for white. In this case, winning zone for the pawn, the bishop pawn, where the king is on the other side, for the king on the side is much bigger. Okay, meaning that it's much more easy for white to win if the king is on the other side. If you compare this with this, you can see it's much smaller. It's much easier for the defender to defend this because of the stalemate trick on the corner. But here, the winning zone is bigger. The reason why this is because in order to draw, what black need to what we call the reason why this draw, because black need to go here to the what we call to the corner in order to draw, to stalemate. If the white king go here, then the it's already lose some tempo because the pawn cannot move forward. So that's the reason why the winning zone is bigger, because the king have time to move. Because when the king here, the black king is in front of the pawn, then the pawn cannot be pushed to promote lah. So that's the reason why this winning zone is bigger. And also you can see on the side also there are winning zone. Okay, there are winning zone on the far to the side. It's because they are also checkmate. You can deliver checkmate, especially on here lah, on this e2. We will see later on how this checkmate happen when the king is in here. But for time being, let's see how white win this thing. Okay, how white win this thing, because the king is inside the winning zone. So first you check anywhere. I mean, you can check anywhere. It doesn't need to be a specific check in specific position, because as long as the king is already in the winning zone, then it's okay. I mean, you just need to be careful only lah. So check, and then you go inside, you go d1. Okay, and then if let's say the king goes to king c3, then you just simply go c1 lah. Once the queen goes in front of the pawn, then it's easy lah. I mean, the king cannot go. I mean, just this is easy lah. So but in this case, the king goes to d1, so that it can still assist this what we call this promotion. So that's the idea for the king goes to the d1, not to the up, because it will sort of like try to sort of like threaten to queen and draw. But in this case, you can just check, and then you go e2, and then you just do like this. You go here, and then you check. Okay, here if you go to the side, then you can just capture the pawn. There are no stalemate here. So in order to make a stalemate, the king must be here. So in order to go here, the king must go through this pass. Okay, but when the king go here, you can see the pawn now is blocked. So there are no time for the pawn to. So now the black is not threatened to queen the pawn. So because of that, where is the thing? Because of that, the king can approach. Once the king is in front of the pawn, the king can approach. The times that is lost by the black is used by the white to force to move the king forward. And then king b2, and then king d2, and then king b1, and then king b3. Because here you can see on the side, and you can see here the winning zone for on the side is smaller, right? On the a4 to the c4 to the d3, e3, and e1. So if you look here, it's already inside the winning zone. Here you can see the winning zone is here, right? So this is what we learned before lah. So this thing lah, the winning zone here kah? Betul kah? I think yeah, it's like that lah. Let me see again. Okay, e3, yeah. So that's thing. So you can see the king is already in its winning zone, because the winning zone is changing. Because here you can see the winning zone here bigger is because the king is on this side. Okay, but once the king goes to the other side, then the winning zone change lah. The winning zone change. The king now is already our king, our white king, the attacker is already inside the winning zone. So see how it can win lah. Because here, if you go to this thing, thinking that you can checkmate, you can draw, then you can just this lah. You can just what we call sort of like go in front of the pawn and win easily. If let's say you are going to b1 and then you have this thing, you have what we call king b3, and then even if you this, remember this is not check, even though it's attacking the queen, but the king is near enough. The king is near enough to sort of like what we call to create a mating checkmate here lah. So that's the reason why the what we call the this thing is winning lah. For example, like that thing. Okay, so that's the thing. So the reason why the winning zone is bigger here is because the king need to go inside, and then when the king is here, the white king have time to move closer. Okay, so to the point that when the king move to this other side, then the white king is already inside the winning zone. Okay, but what if the king here is on other side? Okay, let's say you can see here, the king is on other side. If attacker king is on the side, the mate can be delivered by the side way lah. Okay, you can see here the way is that you sort of like check, and then you go here. If you sort of like you go here, because he want to what we call, because if you go here, then this king cannot go inside anyway, because the what we call our queen cover the square, so it just lose time lah if the king try to go to the corner. So that's why the king goes to what we call to the d1, threatening to queen this pawn. So you check and then go here, and then you sort of like this, you go to, you prevent the king from coming out, from going to the corner, because remember the king now is so far, so you cannot make what we call, you cannot sort of like support the queen mate on here. Okay, previously we learned that the queen can mate here, right, with the support by the king somewhere here, but in this case the king is so far, so you cannot use that technique. You need to do another type of checkmate on the side. So in this case, you don't want to what we call to allow the king goes to side. For example, let's say you make a mistake here, you make a mistake here, then king goes to the side, and then aiming to what we call to threaten to promote the pawn, and then you need to check and then go here, and then queen a1 go here, queen b1, queen here, and then you cannot capture the white cannot capture because it's stalemate and so on lah. So that's the reason in this case you need to sort of like what we call prevent the king from go to the corner. So by checking that, and then you go up, and then you pin, and then king need to remove from the pin, need to go down lah, because if you go up, then you can have this position that we learned that's easy lah. So that's why it goes down, and then you can move the king forward, and then you queen whatever, you have the checkmate on the side. So this is the reason why you sort of like you can have win even though the king is on the what we call on the side here, because the winning zone is still bigger. The winning zone is here, right? Is here. Okay, this winning zone is here. So that's why it's still winning the bishop pawn, even though the king is on the other side, because they are checkmate on the what we call on this square. Okay, so you need to allow the checkmate on the square by preventing the king from going to here. And how to prevent that? You check, and then this queen need to check here, and then play with the king, and then you make a checkmate like that lah. So that is a queen versus bishop pawn lah. Queen versus bishop pawn. The concept of this is important because in the game, typically you sort of like will see this thing occur often. I mean this what we call the race of the pawn and so on.
Okay, by the way, today's, as I said in the WhatsApp, that today's we will do until 11:30 11:30 so you stay Okay, anyway, so that's about the queen versus pawn. The queens always win against the central pawn. So let's see here. Queens always win if the pawn is central or knight pawn. If the pawn is rook and rook or bishop pawn, then some defensive measure technique, some defensive setup is possible to stalemate if the attacker king is within the winning zone. Okay, the winning zone, the one that I show you lah. For example, I recap a little bit this thing. This is a winning zone for the green one, the winning zone for the rook pawn, and this is winning zone for the bishop pawn if the king on this side, on the corner, near the corner, and this is the winning zone for the what we call for the bishop pawn if the black king is on this corner. Okay, so that is basically the it's of the queen versus pawn lah. Queens always win against the center pawn, and if the pawn is a rook or bishop pawn, then you need to take some measure lah. Okay, so that's the thing. We will continue. Okay, we'll continue. Pawn and game is basically the basis of everything. So yeah, all this is basic, but this basic is important because later on when we deal with the other ending like rook ending or bishop ending, then when we reach there, then we will not discuss anymore lah, because this is the basic you need to master first. Okay, so there is only one pawn. What if let's say you have a multiple pawn in the what we call in the board, on the board like this? We are looking at this. Now we have a 2 pawn. We have a pawn and pawn. And now is where I want to introduce the concept of critical square. So let me put here, let me put here, let me put here. So now we want to learn about critical square. Okay, critical square. The square upon which the occupation of king ensure capture of pawn. Okay, so we have the critical square. We have the what we call the key square. Okay, key square is the square in front of the pawn which occupation by king guarantee victory. Now we want to talk about critical square. Okay, critical square. Let me make this. Normally critical square is the concept of critical square is there when you have like what we call this block pawn. For example, here you can see here there are 2 pawn. Each pawn is blocked with each other. So what is the critical square? Critical square is the square by which if the king able to enter it, then it can capture the pawn. For example, for this pawn, let's say for this pawn, the critical square for this pawn is this. Okay, and this. So 3 square on the side. Okay, if let's say the what we call the white king can enter the square, then the pawn will fall by force. That's what does it mean by critical square. Okay, so in this case, if for example white is to move, then white can simply enter the what we call the sort of like the critical square straight away. So white will enter the critical square straight away. Okay, so meaning that now this is already inside the critical square, the pawn critical square, then meaning that the pawn will fall lah. So how? So the black goes there, and then king f5, and then king f6 also win. It doesn't really matter where you go, but it doesn't matter. It just now the pawn will lose lah. King d7, near to the pawn, and then let's say the what we call the king try to protect, and then you just do like this, and then now so now the king goes here and can capture. But remember, critical square is not key square. Okay, so meaning that critical square
is not the same as key square. If you win the pawn, but you cannot enter your own pawn key square, then the game draw lah, So for example here, so you know this the key square for this pawn, the key square, KEY, key square for this pawn is here, because this pawn is not yet past the middle middle board. So the king can opposition, we learn about position, refer back to the previous lesson. Okay, so getting the pawn, winning the pawn doesn't guarantee you win the game yet, unless you are in the key square. So for example here, even though from here the white king can enter the critical square and capture the pawn, doesn't mean that black is lost. So don't just resign here. Remember, don't just resign. Okay, because you can do opposition and prevent the white king from enter the key square of the d4 pawn. So that is a critical square. That is basically critical square. So in this case, the critical square, let's say here is a black to move. The critical square, normally you say from the perspective of the opponent lah. For example, let's say you are black, you talk about the critical square of your opponent pawn. For example, you are black, you want to capture this pawn, so the critical square is here. Okay, other side, both side lah. So you can see if black to move, then black can enter the critical square straight away. So just enter, just enter. So here is different than the previous example, because now you are capturing the the pawn, and also at the same time you are inside the key square of your own pawn. For example, this pawn, you know the key square for this pawn is where? Is here. So the king capturing the pawn, the white pawn on d3, and also at the same time by capturing that, is also already inside the key square of this the d4 pawn. You see the d4 pawn, because the black is moved here, so the d4 pawn for black perspective is already crossed the middle line. So the key square for this d4 pawn is the 6, and the king is already there, and then you just do the squeeze and you win. So this is basically the way how to say that the critical square, if you capture the pawn, not necessarily you win, but if let's say by capturing it you are already inside the key square of your own pawn, then you win. Okay, so that is critical square. And another thing I want to show is this thing. Okay, so the critical square, let's say now white to move. So white want to capture the pawn. Okay, let's say white to move, white want to capture this pawn. The critical square for this is this. Okay, and in order to to capture this pawn, white can go many ways. For example, it can go straight. Okay, you have what 1 2 3 4 5 move to capture the pawn. White can also go this way, this. It's also 5 move. 1 2 3 4 5. It also can go like this. 1 2 3 4 5. So there are many ways to capture this this A7 pawn. So in when we learn the mathematics in secondary school and so on, we learn that the shortest connection between 2 points is the straight line. So by right, from here going straight to here is the shortest connection. But on the chessboard, the rule is only valid for diagonal. We remember our rule of square. So between two corner, the shortest is always the diagonal. So that's in chess, that's only valid when you have a diagonal lah. I mean when you are going to the corner. But here, as you can see, the shortest path to this pawn is not necessarily the straight line. You can go here, you can do zigzag, you can do like very strange movement. You can still capture this pawn in 5 moves. Okay, if you go straight away, if you go for example straight away like this, then the what we call this black can sort of like do imprisonment. Okay, so this is draw because the king cannot move out. Okay, move out, the king cannot move out. Okay, so even though it seems like white can sort of like capture the pawn, then you cannot win if let's say you are being imprisoned. So in this case, but is this mean that the white cannot win this win the game? Not necessarily, because here there are one concept that we want to study, which is the what we call the shouldering, or some people call body check, some people call blocking. Okay, so basically to prevent the what we call the opponent king to prevent coming in. I mean something like that lah. So that is basically the idea of shouldering, meaning that you use your own king, you use your own king to sort of like to deny the opponent king pass. So that is basically the shouldering lah, the what we call the definition of shouldering. So here, remember, you can also go here. 1 2 3 4 is still what we call is still 5 move also, but the yellow what we call the yellow pass is the best lah, because if you go here queen e6, king e6 and then king c3, you go king d5, the only move to draw, because here when you put here, this is what we call the shouldering, because now the king cannot go up. Okay, of course the king can go here, but if you go here, then you can just check to here, and then this you sort of like the king is at the back, you cannot sort of like go to the side and imprison, so that's no go lah. So the idea is that the king cannot go up. Okay, compare with the previously, if you go move straight away, the king can go up, can go inside, and then can imprison. But here when you do like this, you preventing, you taking the what we call the sort of like zigzag, not the straight route, but you take the what we call this sort of like a strange route. You sort of like preventing the king from going up lah, and because of this, the black king need to waste time lah. So you can see the king waste time here, instead of going to the one rank further, it stay on the 3rd rank. So that's one move is enough to sort of like prevent white king from being imprisoned. So to show like this, okay, so you can see here, in order to draw this thing, the king must imprison, or basically to sort of like to cover this what we call the key square for this edge pawn lah. So because the king is nowhere near with the for imprisonment or here, then the game is winning, because the what we call the king, the white king can go into the key square. So remember, the key square for the rook pawn is here, so the white managed to be there without the black king capture straight away lah. So then you can just here, and then you just win. So that's basically the critical square lah, the critical square. The what we learn about the critical square, but this is basically is about more about the shouldering, the shouldering and body check, shouldering and body check. So basically you using your own king to deny your opponent king passway. Okay, so this also the common technique in pawn endgame lah. Okay. So now 11-18. So let's learn a little bit. Okay, with all the knowledge that we learned just now, let's try to sort of like put everything together, and we see how to win this thing. Okay, let's say in pawn endgame, okay, as I said before, here you can see there are more pawn. Okay, more pawn. Okay, white to move, Okay, white to move, and if you see, then the black, actually the threat is just to go here and to eat a pawn lah. So white to move is just sort of like go to the what we call to the taking the opposition lah, taking the opposition. If for example the white goes if let's say the white goes to the c4, then the what we call the king just capture outflank, not really outflank, meaning that you just capture the pawn lah. In this case, you can see the what we call the white cannot enter the territory, the black territory. So this is a loss lah, because you can just capture and then you can just reaching the key square. Remember, the key square for this pawn is basically where is this. So reaching the key square and then you can just move the pawn. So remember here they are counterplay, okay, because you are dealing with more pawns, so they are counterplay. You need to consider the counterplay, but in this case it's not sufficient, because you can see you get queen, and here you can see the pawn not even on the sevens, and even if the pawn on the sevens, we learned before, the knight pawn and the central pawn is always winnable by the queen lah. So this just easy win lah. You just check and then you just, okay, now it's on the 7, so it's the same as before. I mean, you can just what we call move the king, because now the what we call the king on the blocking the pass of the queening of the b pawn. So they enter and then you can just do like this and then do like this. You what we call check and then you go here and then now you can enter, and then let's say you're coming out. You coming out and then you can just check and then you go here and then you check and then it's protect and then you check and then you sort of like do like this and then you can just move nearly and then you win lah later on. So basically we have learned before about this. So you need to see where to go. So if you go this thing, then the king can go and capture the pawn and win the pawn race. So that's why it's important for you to go to the what we call to the d4, and then here now the black is the one need to decide which move need to go lah. Okay, so but in this case so if you go to king e7, then king 7 you can just go in d5 and then you take the opposition, the king cannot go inside lah. Okay, so if let's say you what we call if what we call king c7, king c7, you can just do king d5 and then you can also take this thing. You cannot enter lah, you cannot enter. So that is basically the idea of opposition lah. The idea of opposition is basically to prevent your enemy king to sort of like from coming in. If you don't know this thing, you just play wrongly, and then you sort of like will allow the king enter your territory and capture the pawn and win, like what we see before. For example, if you don't observe the opposition, you play like wrongly like this, and then the king enter lah, and then you have the pawn race and so on. So that's the thing. So let's see a little bit about opposition, more about opposition, because the opposition is one of the key thing lah in the pawn endgame. Okay, so as you can see now, the pawn is more or less far away. Okay, so the king oppose each other. So now let's say now it's black to move. If black to move, okay, let's say black to move. If black to move here, what does it mean? It means that white have the opposition. White have some advantage lah. But remember, opposition is just a means. It's not necessarily the aims. The aims is outflanking. Okay, for example, let's say we see in the previous example, even though for example here, even though here, okay, opposition, even though white have opposition here, okay, but white cannot outflank, because if you go king c7 like this, king d5, you cannot outflank here, because you have this what we call the opposition. Again, you cannot go here, lah. Okay, so let's go in this again. Okay, so here if black to move, okay, black to move, meaning that white have opposition. Let's say black to move to king c6. So in this case, you need to be careful. Of course, now when you are having the opposition and black move, now white have the access to what we call to sort of like this square and then try to capture this thing. But remember, this thing is not sort of like it's a mistake, it's a blunder if you go straight away to the g pawn, because remember, when you have more pawn, the counterplay is possible. To show you, the black will go and make a counterplay
go here, go here, go here, go here, go here, go here, and you can see now this pawn, you have, it takes what we call, how many square? You have 4 square in order to queen. This also 4 square to queen. So the same square to queen, then it's draw lah. So you have this, you go, and then it's draw. There are no immediate checkmate or immediate skewer or pin, whatever. So this is a immediate draw lah. So that's why going to straight away to the G pawn is not right. So the way to do is that you basically what you are going to the C6. So basically what it does is that again taking the opposition, but now even under favorable condition lah. Because now if let's say the king goes to B6 and then now you go here, you go to the you outflank, but now the difference is that the king cannot go capture this because it is blocked, shouldered by this what we call by this white king. So that's the reason, the difference between this and previously. And previously, the king is not, the black king is not shouldered. So the black king is not blocked by the white king. So black king can enter. But in this case, when you do like this, the black king cannot enter and capture this pawn. So then black need to what we call to lose the lose time, and then white can win in 2 ways lah. In this case, either goes to this pawn, here white can go here or can go here lah, because here white can go here is because remember the what we call the critical square for this is here. So the king is already on this critical square, so meaning that the king already can capture this pawn lah. So there are 2 ways, either you capture the G pawn, for example like this, go. The difference between this and before is that now the black king is in front of the pawn. So you know this, you take like what we call the 4 square 4 move to queen, but here also 4 move to queen, but because of this king is in front of the pawn, then the king must move away. So in effect, the black need 5 move instead of 4 move to queen. So white 5, queen, black 5 move, white is 4 move, then white is move first, and then white can queen first lah. So you can just win there lah. So you can just move, and then you can see here. Okay, you can just sort of like get the queen first, and here you can see this is a rook pawn. Normally this for the rook pawn, the what we call the area is around here, right? The what we call the winning zone is around here. The king must be around here to draw, but the position of the black king is so bad, so black can just straight away play this thing and then cover this square, and then the king cannot go anywhere, and because so that, and then this win lah, because the queen is in front of the pawn, so it's easy lah. Okay, so that's the thing. So that's about the thing. So now, so that is one way to win, to go to the G, what we call to go to the G pawn. Another way is to go to this, what we call to this A pawn. Okay, to this A pawn. So for example, you go to C5 and then go here. Remember, it's already inside the what we call the what we call this thing, the critical square for this A5 pawn. So meaning that the pawn will fall in force lah. So check, go here, check. So how to win this? You use this. So this pawn now, we call this outside pass pawn. This pawn we call it outside pass pawn. Okay, so or distant pass pawn, we call that thing outside or distant pass pawn. Okay, this is a big advantage, because it can divert the opponent king away. So for example, you have a pass pawn, meaning that in order, even if like black want to sort of make the counter play here, it need to sort of like take care of this pawn. So this pawn is sort of like a diversion. So just go, the black need to sort of like take care of the pawn, and then while it's doing that, then the king goes to other way, and then just queen like before lah. Queen easily lah, because it's just too far. The king is too far to make a draw here. So that's the thing. Okay, if let's say this thing, So this what if the king goes to b6 but what if the king goes to other way? So if this is the case, then just go to the b5 and that's you just capture, even though now there are no shoulder, but remember this thing, the king is one step less. The king is inside, is in front of the pawn, so the pawn need 5 move. I mean, in total, the black need 5 moves to queen the pawn, while the white need what we call the 4 move to queen the pawn. And we seen before, then this is a white to move, a white win lah. Okay, and then if so for example, that is when the what we call the king goes there. We learn what happened if king goes there. If the black king goes to other way around, it's the same thing. It's like a symmetrical. We know that white should play this. Okay, so don't play this because this is draw lah. This is wrong because this is draw. So it's basically just sort of like symmetrical position, the other way around lah, but it's the same. This more or less the same like before. If you look here, what you see just now here, the king is facing each other, but now the king is a little bit further back. So this thing is a little bit complicated lah. I mean that the situation become a little bit complicated when the king is not facing each other. Okay, so let's say white is to move. White is to move. How white can play here? Because previously it's easy because it's already distant, the near opposition. But now the position, the white and the black king is so far. So here it's important for you to understand the concept of distant opposition. So white to move, white need to play like this. So you can see the distance here. They are what we call so white need to play this because you can see here there are odd number, ganjil, odd number of square between here. So this what we call the distant opposition lah. You can see here this is a 5 square in between, because if let's say white goes straight to the top, straight to the what we call to the goes up, and then the black is the one who gain the opposition. For example here, the black is the one who gain the opposition. There are odd number, the 3 square between this king. So king c4 and king c6. Okay, so now this is black is the one who gain the opposition, and the position is draw because the white cannot enter. The white cannot enter here. Okay, white cannot enter. If white goes here and then the king goes here and then white goes here, the king just follow, the goes here, so the king cannot enter. The king cannot enter. So that's why you cannot just go straight, just sort of like go blindly go to sort of like go up. Okay, even if you go to b3 also doesn't work because black can do what? Black can do virtual opposition by king d7. Okay, because black can do here lah. King d7 we learned before. This is virtual opposition. You can see there are like 1, 2, 3, 4 the square, and also you can see this thing, meaning that because black is the one who enter first, so meaning that the white king is the one who left last. So in this case we say that the black is the one who gained the opposition. Okay, so here if the king goes to c4 and then just convert into the near opposition. If go to the and that so on lah, or if go to c3 and then just go to c7. Okay, from b3 from b3, if let's say go to the virtual opposition first, and then let's say if the king go to this thing to the c3, and then black can maintain the opposition by converting this virtual into the distant opposition. So you can see the square in between is still what we call the odd. Okay, so that's draw lah. Okay, so that's why in this position, the way how you move the king matters. This is no go. We see this is also no go. Okay, this is draw. If you go to this square, it's draw. The only way is go to this square, because why? Because if you go here, if you go to the king c2, you are basically doing the opposition. And remember, the idea of opposition is to outflank. And remember, the purpose of outflank is to capture the pawn lah. I mean, you want to capture the pawn. We learn about the critical square. If you outflank, you can enter the critical square of this pawn. So that's the idea. The opposition is just the means. The aim is to outflank. Okay, so let's say the black
play king d8. Okay, and then the white keep the opposition. Cannot go here, don't go up, because if you go up here, then same, you black is the one who gain the opposition. You see the distance, the square in between is odd, and black is the one who enter, so black gain opposition, and the position is draw lah. So similarly, if you go to d3, so for example here, this is no go. If you go here and here, is no go, because if you go to c3, black get the opposition. If let's say you go to the d3, then black also gain the opposition. You see this opposition. So, and then if you go here, and then you just prevent the king from entering, and then prevent the king from entering, and so on. So basically, that's the thing. That's the idea. So the way is white going to maintain the opposition here. Okay, so it seems like now the white is not, I mean the position does not go anywhere, because black will keep oscillating here and there, and this as if like white doesn't make any progress from start, from here to here, as if there are no progress. I mean, in order to win, you need to capture the pawn, right? So it's as if that white does not go anywhere. But this is what we mean by opposition. Opposition is just the means, the process. The aim is to outflank. So we so here the idea now is to outflank lah. So so king e8, so you outflank lah, because it goes here, and then you outflank to what we call to d7. So outflanking, as we learned before, normally when for example you go let's say for example here, the outflanking, if the king goes here, and the white, if let's say the king is moving, the king is the one that, the black king is the one that is moved, white gain the opposition. If the king move here, and then the white will outflank on other side lah, on the other side. If the what we call the king goes here, and white will outflank on the other side. That's outflanking, going to the other side. So let's see here, here in this case. So this also you can do the outflanking. Okay, in order to make a progress, you can do outflanking in this case. So the what we call the king goes here, and then outflank. Okay, and then let's say the king goes in the middle, and then white maintain the opposition. You can see the opposition, so you can see the progress. Previously they are like 1 2 3 4 5 distant opposition. But now when you do the outflanking, you are converting the distant opposition to even closer. Before this, there are 5 square in between. Now there are 3 square. So they are progress there. Okay, they are progress there. And then, so we can say that white has achieved its objective, gaining the opposition, but with the closer distance lah. With closer distance now, because white king is closer. Because remember, this white king is closer to the pawn. They are closer to the pawn than the black king. Let me remove all this thing. Okay, so now let's say black goes to the c7. So what to do now? Is outflanking. Do the outflanking. This thing will win because white is closer to the pawn than the black. Okay, white is close to the pawn. White king is closer to this pawn than black king to this pawn. Okay, so just king e4, and then king c6, king f5, and then king c5, and then capture first, and then because of this, you have this like four move to sort of like to queen, and here even though there are 4 move for pawn, the a5 pawn to the queen square, but because the king is still in front, so you need to waste 1 move lah. So essentially the black have 5 move compared to the 4 move for the white lah. So that is basically the idea of the opposition thing lah. So you cannot just sort of like go, you need to think before you move in pawn ending. Remember, in endgame, even a small mistake can cause a game. In opening or in the middle game, if you make one mistake, one blunder here, mistake here and there, you can still patch that up. I mean, but if you make mistake in the end game, normally it fatal. For example, like this, if you sort of like make a mistake, then the game will be draw. If you do it correctly, then you can win the game. So in end game, every move count. Every move is very important. So let's see now this thing. Let's see now this what we call this position. This another position battle is the same thing, but a little bit different. If you look here, I just move. For example, previously, the pawn is here. The pawn on the g5, the pawn on g5, but now the pawn on the f5. Previously here, but the pawn now is on the f5. Okay, so it seems like quite similar. Okay, but here white cannot win, even though now white have the opposition. Remember, they are odd number. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not odd number. Let's say white is to move. White move queen d2, and then now white have the opposition. So this odd number, nombor yang ganjil. There are 5 square in between. But here, even though white have the opposition, white cannot win compared to previously. Because why? Because white cannot outflank. Okay, remember, opposition is just a mean. What I mean by white cannot outflank? Because black goes up. Okay, goes up, goes here, because what we call want to sort of like gain the opposition. If you go here, then that's wrong lah, because you have this opposition. But here, black goes to the side, so that if king goes front, then black can sort of like push the opposition, gain the opposition, and preventing the what we call the white from entering. Because remember here, if white goes here, he cannot enter here. Okay, because this because cannot enter lah, because cannot enter. Okay, so this white gain opposition, and then king d7, king d3, and king c7, in order to prevent white to enter lah. If you go king c6, so we can say that the king c6 here, this is wrong. If you go here, it's wrong. This is the correct way lah. If you go to this king c6, and then you have opposition, and then need to give way lah. If you give way like this, the king enter lah, outflank. If you give like this, the king enter, outflank lah. So similarly, if let's say, if you go to e6, if you to d6, the white gain the opposition, and then cannot lah go here. Enter lah, and capture this thing. And if you go here, and then easily capture here lah. So that's the other way. So you can see here, in this case, black can prevent the opposition by sidestep like this, and then get the opposition by itself. Because in order to win, white must capture this 2 pawn, and in order to capture this pawn, white must go inside. So in order to go inside, need to move king forward lah. So that's, with that in mind, black task is to prevent the white from move forward. In this case, black can do that by doing this lah. So can just opposition this thing. So that is the opposition. So that's the opposition is one of the basic defensive or attacking technique in pawn endgame. Okay. So now what we have learned a few things now. We have learned like the opposition, the shouldering, body check, and blocking, key square, critical square, and so on. So there are also another technique in pawn endgame is called passing the tempo. For example here, if you look in this position, so this what we will learn about triangulation. Triangulation, one of the technique in the pawn endgame to pass the tempo. Okay, to pass the tempo. What does it mean? Triangulation mean that segitiga lah. What is the thing? Triangulation mean that you make a triangle lah. For example here, if you look here, this position, white to move. If this is black to move, if this position is black to move, then it's easy, because when black to move, black must move his king lah. When black cannot move here, black must move somewhere. Let's say black move somewhere here, then the white can just simply enter and capture the pawn, and easy win lah. Easy win. The problem now, this is white to move. Okay, so the idea is how to make this same position but with black to move. Now white to move, but how to make it this position occur like this but with black to move. So this is what we call triangulation. You make a triangle. Okay, so how to do that? You go to the king d5. Okay, king c8, king c8. So what to do now? Okay, by the way, if you go to king d8, if the king goes to king d8, then white can just go here. This without this pawn even, then white is winning lah, because you can just do what we call, we have learned this this what we call the squeeze. So in order, so white play like this, and there are reason why black play like this, because if you do like this, then white can win easily by squeezing lah. So white play king c8. So what to do now? If you do that, if white goes here, then nothing happen, because you go here, and then if you do like this, then you can stalemate. You get stalemate. If let's say you go here, then it's the same position like before. So white need to find a way to pass the move to black. Okay, so that's the idea, to pass the move. You need to find a way to pass the move. How to pass the move to black? So what to do is that you make a triangulation. So for example, this, you go to what I call d4, and then king c8, and then king c4. So you can see they are moving here, and then you basically, and then you go there. The king goes somewhere lah. If the king goes here, and then you get a black to move lah. So that's why king goes there. So if let's say black move here, then the king can goes here, goes there lah. So then white play king d4, So you can see the position from first from here, and then go to here, and then go to here. Okay, and then king c8, cancel, king c8, and then king d5. Okay, so now black is in what we call in the dilemma. If king goes here, then white win by squeezing. We learned before, right, this thing. Okay, if the king goes here, if the king what we call, if the king goes to let me see here. If the king goes here, then is the same position, the original position, but black to move. So this is basically how you transfer the position. As you can see at the beginning, okay, the way is go here, and then go here, and then go here, and then go here. You can see it's like a triangle. Okay, you are passing the move to king. So whenever you have the position and you don't want to move, and then you know that if let's say your opponent, if it is his turn to move, then he will lose. Then you try to find a way to play around with the king, or do the triangulation, so in such a way that maybe I mean, depending on how you calculate, you can get the same position but with your opponent turn to move. So in this case, the what we call the triangulation happen like this, like this, and this thing, and go here, go here, go here, go here, and then you go up, and then this make a black in zong lah. So whatever black move, lose lah. So move here, if move here, cancel. If the black move here, then just go inside, and then just go to this square lah. So if the king just squeeze like before. So this is triangulation method. So we have seen now we have seen the triangulation, pass the tempo. So the technique how to pass the tempo using the king to pass the tempo. Okay, so now, okay, so let's go here. Okay, so now let's go to this end game. So now we have learned a lot of things. So now you have this position in front of you, and then how to calculate this. Okay, how to win this with all have you learned before. What you have key square, this square, and so on. How to win this thing. So when you are facing this type of position, first in endgame is good idea to start with the end of the mind. You need to keep in mind what you want to achieve. For example here,
how to win this thing. You need to come up with a plan, and plan must be based on objective. So in order to win this, you can see here they are white have 2 pound, black has 1 pound. Black have 1 pound, so 2 plus 1, so white have majority and black have minority. So majority always win. I mean that you can force the creation of pass pawn when you have majority against the minority. But how to do that? So first you need to put inside your mind what you want to achieve, what you want to aim. So from this, you are aiming to get something like this. This is what you aim. You want to put the king in front, and then you push the pawn forward. So in this case, if you push the pawn forward like this, and then capture, and then winning lah, because the king goes here, and then you can have squeeze. But so this is basically what you want to aim. But remember here, this is white to move. White to move is winning because you can just push the pawn. If black doesn't capture, just do like this lah. You can just win straight win also lah. But that is what if white to move. But what if black to move? If black is to move like this, then you cannot squeeze lah. If black to move, for example king g8, and then if you play g6, you take capture, then they cannot squeeze because the black will like get the opposition, and then if even you do this thing, you get the completing the L lah, and then you get the stalemate like that. So basically this is your aim. This is your aim. You want to have this position in such a way that your king is sort of like this, so that when you push this pawn, then you get this king facing each other, so that when the king move, you can do the squeezing lah. So that's the aim. So looking back at this thing, so how to do that? So the first thing, just move the king up. You just move the king up, blah blah blah, king up there. So let's say just move this king. So just move blah 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 blah, just move, and then you get this thing. Okay, so now it's time to calculate. So now is because white goes here and then black to move. So now it's time to calculate. It's time to calculate how to do that thing in such a way we get what we aimed before. Okay, first you can push this. Okay, pushing this g pawn, okay, cannot do any harm, because since we can control black king position by having this, because remember this pawn can move either one or this pawn can move once or two. So you can control where the king move, because you have this what we call reserve tempi. This is what we call reserve tempi. Oh, by the way, this position is what we call this thing. What we call this thing? This exercise is people call it Capablanca exercise lah. Capablanca is a third world champion, so he devised this exercise lah to show how to calculate and plan. So we know that we want king here. We want to king here and push the pawn forward to win. So so we go here. So let me put the one that we learned just now. The position is basically Capablanca position. So it's just to give you the name lah. So the position here is Capablanca position lah. I mean, it's not like the actual game, it's just a training. So to teach about how reserve tempi, calculation, and so on. So now we learn that the king must go up, and then the king is here. So now first moving as I said, moving this g pawn doesn't do any harm, because you can control where the king move, because you have this reserve tempi because of this pawn h2. So king go here, and then you can push that. This you can push because you still have this reserve tempi. You have this what we call reserve tempi. You can either push one or twice, 2 square up. Okay. So now it's important. Now it's important whether you want to move this or you move this. Okay, because now we need to make sure what we call the position that we want just now. We want when the pawn is here. Both pawn on the what we call both pawn on the 5th rank. The king must be here lah. So that's the idea lah. You need to do calculation here. So either here and here make a difference. For example,
if you make this h4 here, and then this is draw lah, because the king goes here, and then the king can go to the g5. Okay, in order to win, as we learned before, you want the position like this. You want the position like this. This is what the position that we want. The king face each other and the pawn like this. But the thing that we get just now is basically the other way around. The king is on the g8. So if you push, then it's draw. It's draw because you cannot do the squeeze. This is completing the L, and then you have the stalemate, and this is draw. So this is very important now to decide. For you to decide which pawn move. You know that this by now, you know h4 is not really right. So the right move is h3. So you use the tempi, and when you put this tempi, you are forcing the king to move, to h8, and then now you have h4, king g8, h5, and now you have this position where the king is facing each other, and then now you have pushing this g6 pawn, and then you can do like before lah, you can winning lah like before. So that is the idea lah. Okay, so now here in this position there are no reserve tempi because the pawn is for sort of like not on the original square, so they doesn't have like what we call the luxury to go either one step or second step. So here in this case, if both sides fell into this position, this whether or not white is winning or black is draw is matter of luck lah, because now you cannot control. So if you go here, let's say you go to g4, so this matter of luck lah, because you cannot control the thing. So this is draw because the king can go here, and then you can sort of like it's draw lah. So that is the problem when you don't have a reserve tempo. Okay, so now this we are going to learn a little bit about the outside pass pawn. We have learned a little bit before about outside pass pawn. So outside pass pawn is like this. You have this pass pawn here. So pass pawn, as I said before, is a pawn that you don't have any other pawn, any enemy pawn to what we call to hinder it from the queening square. Okay, so we can say this b4 is outside pass pawn lah. So so this here, this position, this constellation, we call it frozen pawn lah. Frozen pawn. You get frozen pawn on the right and the outside pass pawn on the left. Okay. As I said, the outside pass pawn is really a big advantage. If you have all things equal, the winning procedure is simple. You sort of like pushing the defender king as far as possible, and then you abandon your outside pass pawn, and then this king can go capture the what we call the other pawn lah. So that's the winning procedure. You push the king as far as possible, and then you abandon. So the idea is that the winning procedure is basically push the king as far as possible, then abandon the pawn and rush to other pawn. So that is the winning procedure lah. So in this case, it's simple. You go to b5, you try to push the king, and then just push as far as possible. Okay, and now you abandon the pawn. By going to other side. So while you abandon the pawn, the enemy king need to capture that pawn. So you have time to capture this pawn, and you win easily. So that's outside pass pawn. The outside pass pawn. Okay, so that's one thing, the advantage of outside pass pawn. Let's see this in the practice. Okay, so this is also the game. So this actual game. So let me put here. So in this case, you can see this is a pawn ending, and then black play blunder. So black play g5. So this is blunder. The reason why this is blunder is because it's allow white to give white opportunity to create a pass pawn. So capture and a capture. So as you can see here, now you have this 2 and then this 1. So 2-1, this is basically majority. The green one is majority, and this one is minority. Majority always win against the minority, meaning that you can force the creation of the pass pawn when you have a majority. So the way how to what we call to force the creation of pass pawn is that you push this first,
and then you push this, and then you push that. Okay, so that's the way how you use the majority. You don't do like this, you don't do like this, because this is frozen lah. This majority is cripple, we call it cripple majority. This cannot go, cannot go. So the way how you want to win the majority, to create the pass pawn from majority, you push this first, and then you push next you push this, and then only then you push this. Okay, if not, if you do like this, then you have this cripple. I mean, this pawn on g4 can cripple this pawn majority. Okay, let's see the game. You capture, so you can see now white have the advantage because white can create the outside pass pawn, outside pass pawn. So let's see the game. So king move up, and then the king goes up, and then king g4. Okay, f5. Okay, you need to know they are en passant. If you don't know this, please read the rule. Okay, king f6, king time f6, and now you can see you have this still possibility to create the pass pawn here. Okay, and that is a very big advantage. So how to do that? You open this thing first, g3 first, and then black cannot do anything, because here you can see here in this position, in this in this region, in this queen side, they are not really a pass pawn, because this 2 against 2, so you cannot create a pass pawn when you have the same majority, same number of the pawn facing each other. But here you have 2 against 1, then you can force the creation of the pass pawn. So yep, that's why you just, this is basically just want to sort of like play the tempo, to prevent to play the tempo, and e5, and then you play h4. Okay, so white play h4, and now if you don't take, then white will take, and then you take and take. So now you can see this pawn is basically outside pass pawn. Okay, so white outside pass pawn, you can see also this is also pass pawn. Okay, but this pass pawn is closer to the white king lah. This closer to the white king, and even this pawn, this thing is a little bit not is still closer, but the problem now is, if let's say black want to take this pawn, black king will be far away from this thing, from whatever on the queen side. So that's the reason lah. White capture this pawn on the pass pawn in the middle is closer to this. So that's the idea. That's the reason why this outside pass pawn is very big advantage, because you push the king far away from the the central of the thing happen in the chessboard lah. Whatever happened in the center or the other side. Okay, so king g6 to prevent the pass pawn from going forward, and then b3 just to gain the tempo, b6 gain the tempo, and then h5 check, and then king f7, and then x6, and then king g6, and then h7, and then go here, and then you can go there, and then you can see this king is nearer to the center, capture this pawn, and then you can capture this, and then you have this pawn, easy to win lah. So that is outside pass pawn. The important of having the important of knowing what to do. So you can see here this pawn move g5, for some is just like a simple pawn move, but in fact this is a losing move, okay, because you can capture, and then you have this opportunity to create the pass pawn. Okay, so let's go here. We learned about this crippling the pawn before, so let's see this thing. Okay, you can force the creation, as I said before, you can force the creation of pass pawn if you have this pawn majority against this minority. This is what we call majority, this is minority. You can create the force the creation by h4 lah, h4, and this is the way how you create the pass pawn lah. So if you go here, and then you go here, and then you go here, this thing, then here, this is draw lah, this is draw, this not this is draw lah, this is draw. Okay, this is draw, because black also have this pawn here, so the balance lah, the balance each other. The problem now, if let's say white to move and white play like what we call the mistake like this, okay, this g4, okay, just the correct way is h4, because you need to move a pawn that is not, okay, the idea is that to move the pawn that is not not opposite of the other pawn lah. So like this, the one that is free is this. So you need to push this first. Okay, so let me remove the color. Okay, so the way how to win is move this first. But if let's say you move the wrong pawn, then you can sort of like cripple the majority like this. Okay, so this what we call the 1 pawn here. They are basically freezing this pawn. Okay, freezing this pawn. So black is in effect, so basically in other way, black is in effect a pawn ups in this case lah, because this pawn is sort of like no use lah, no use. Okay, so now king b3, because you remember this is a pass pawn, so white king need to take care of this anyway. So king d5 and abandon the thing, the procedure that we learned before. You abandon the what we call this thing lah. So this we are under the frozen pawn. This is a frozen pawn, frozen or what we call not frozen, I mean cripple the pawn, cripple the pawn, freeze the majority. So that is basically the concept of this lah. So you 1 pawn here, you can see this move, and not this move, but this move, this 1 pawn frozen 2 pawn. Okay, 1 pawn cripple 2 pawn. Okay, so you get here, and then you have this. Okay, in this case you need to play carefully lah, because if you go here, this is a mistake. This is a mistake, even though this you think that is just a simple pawn endgame, but this is a mistake. This is a mistake. This is the correct way. That is the mistake. If you go to this thing, then what will happen is that you just black can play like this, and then you need to capture, and then you have this counterplay, and then you can just queen at the same time. Okay, if let's say for example, black capture this, and then white capture, and then it's draw lah. So that is basically the important of, even though this seems like winning, but you need to be careful. Most of people will go here. Okay, you need to be careful there, because this is the only way to win. Because now if let's say you move like this, and then you can go here, because now if you push this, you can capture. Compare this with before. Compare this with if you go sort of like go here like this, you sort of like you go to the f3. This you cannot control this square, so the pawn will sort of like go forward, and then you cannot capture with the king. So either you capture with the pawn, or you just capture the pawn here with the king. So either way the position will be drawn lah. So the either way, either you get 2 queen at the same time, both sides have a queen, or you can you are basically like the king capture, and then the is ending with the no pawn no king lah, only king. Okay, so that's the reason why you need to be careful. Even though this like already in the it seems like winning, but then you be careful lah. King f4 and then king c4. I mean, just because now if you move like this, then you can just capture there, because now this you can just simply capture. This is different than before. Because before the king is here, so here. Okay, so that's a little bit different. Okay, so now king c4, and then go here, capture, and then king here, and then you can win. Because now you remember, this thing is what we call the key square for this is this. The key square for this g5 pawn is on the 3rd rank here, and the king is already on the key square and winning lah. King g5, and then this what we learned before lah. Okay, so this the thing. So that's basically it's basically this thing lah. So the correct way is just go to what we call to h4, h5. Okay, and then you just king goes to try to ni lah, because now the white is basically threatened to create the pass pawn here. So black need to be aware about that. Even though black have his own pass pawn here, but be careful if let's say black try to maintain this pass pawn, because remember this pass pawn here on this b4 is blocked by this king, so it cannot go anywhere. So if you do like this, then the white just push the pawn and then just get the pawn, and then as we learned before, this what we call the key square for this is like this. Okay, not the key square, the rule of square stated that this pawn can quit even without the king assistance. Okay, so that is basically the frozen pass pawn. So if you don't do like this, because you can have this is like crippling the pawn. Okay, the one pawn, the minority frozen the majority. Okay, so I have 3 more. So for example, this is the game that I play before somewhere, but I just want to show you at this position. This is basically against the cripple pawn. Okay, so you can see here. Okay, the position is here. You can see black is 1 pawn up, white is 1 pawn down. Okay, so white is trying to capture this pawn and then making this pawn as a pass pawn. The thing is that the black have what we call this pawn majority on this case, while white have this what we call minority. So this pawn on the g5 is basically covering this square, so we can say that's 1 pawn, sort of like cripple 3 pawn. Okay, cripple 3 pawn. Okay, so let's say so that's why but because the king here is very near with the pawn itself, so the black king can land the helping hand lah. So f6, okay, and then f4, I think s5. So as you can see here, this pawn is still crippling this pawn, okay. And but the thing is now, even though this crippling, this 2 pawn still 2 pawn. Okay, even though this is this cannot move, actually it can move, because 2 pawn, even though it's crippled, it's still 2 pawn. So yeah, so you can just move like this, and then you can impasse it. The reason why this okay is because the king here is near, so it can protect. Okay, can protect the thing. So if you go g5, and then also you have this what we call the pass pawn here, and then the king can protect this pawn from queening lah. So you have pass pawn. So you can see when you eat this thing, this pawn become the pass pawn, and then the king must take care of this pawn, because this pawn have this what we call the, in the rule of square is here. Okay, so this the rule. Let me remove the what we call the arrow first. Arrow first. Okay. Wait. Yeah. Okay. So okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So capture like that doesn't work because the what we call the rule of square that we learned before. So this thing is already outside the what we call the king square, the white king square. So black can just what we call the queen without anything. So this thing doesn't work because the king is inside the square. So and then you just capture and then win lah, So here just what I want to tell you here is that even though this pawn crippling 2 pawn, 1 pawn cripple 2 pawn, 2 pawn still 2 pawn. Okay, meaning that if the king is near, then you can just use like this. Even though you can capture this thing, this king can sort of like still maintain the what we call the is near the square lah, inside the square of this pawn, whereas this pawn become the what we call the pass pawn. Okay, just to give you the idea, this is what we want to learn about the mind square. Mind square meaning that as the name state there, you cannot enter this square. For example, the mind square for this is this and this. This basically the white cannot enter here, black cannot enter here. Whoever enter first will lose. It's like you are stepping on the mine lah, the periuk api. Okay, so this is mine square. Okay, so whoever enter first, it will lose lah. For example here, king for example, if let's say it goes straight here, then king goes here, and then because white is the one who what we call to enter first. Now you can see this is the case of reciprocal zhuang. We call it reciprocal reciprocal Zhuang, Zhuang. So this is the case of reciprocal Zhuang. So in this case, white need to move. So white need to move. Let's say white move something, and then the king capture, and then because this key square for this is here, and then the king is just easily goes to the key square and win lah. So that's why in this case, you cannot step first into this thing. Let's say white play like this, and then if let's say black enter the square, and then black is losing lah, because now black enter first, and then now white enter this second, and then black need to go. So wherever black go, then capture, and then this the key square is here, and then it's winning straight away lah. Okay, so king f6. So that's why white play like this, black play like that. Okay, so both sides try to sort of like what we call try to avoid the mine square. Remember the mine square for is here and here. That is the mine square, not here, here and here. So and then but here white is winning because white can force black to enter, because now white play like this. Okay, so now you want to capture, this pawn. So it's force king to protect this thing. But when king protect like this, it's already land into the mine square. So and then here win lah. So that is basically mine square lah. So that's what the what you call the white win this, because white can force black to enter this mine square. Okay, but if let's say this move, this is basically black is to move, then the thing is different, because black can go here. Okay, can go here. Okay, and then trying to do the same thing as white, because black want to go here, but here black is white is better off lah, because white can go here, and then here, because white is better, because better off is because white can hold the draw, because this pawn the key square is here, and white can take the opposition and maintain the opposition, and this prevent the what we call the black king to go in front, because capturing the pawn here, not making the king be inside the what we call the key square. Okay, so compare with the white just now, if white to move, white go here, go there, white let's say black goes here, this is different because now white is capturing the pawn and also inside the key square for the pawn. Okay, so as we learned before, the key square, whatever be in the key square, it will win regardless whatever move. So even if we move like this, then you can just do like this, and then you have what we call the squeezing, and then you need to win lah. You can win. So that is basically the mine square. Is a case of reciprocal Zhuang. Whoever enter first lose. I mean, what does it mean lose here? Lose the pawn lah. Lose the pawn. Because as you can see, losing the pawn not necessarily losing the game. Okay, the last part. So as you can see here, the white pawn is already past the midline, and also the king here is not within the square of the pawn. Okay, there are two things. The pawn is already past the midline, and the king is not inside the square. If let's say white is to move, okay, so white to move is move like this lah. Move like this, you can win by playing like this, because if you take like that, and then you can sort of like you can play a6. Okay, when you play a6, this black is in dilemma whether to take this or to take this. So there are dilemma. If black take this thing, you take this, the pawn will sort of like pass through, and because this pawn the rule of square dictate that this is far from this what we call king, and the pawn will queen lah. So if let's say the black take like this, and then the pawn can take that, and the queen also lah. Okay, so that's one thing. If let's say that is what happened if you take with the c pawn.
what happen if you take with the A pawn? Let's say instead of take this pawn, you take with the A pawn. The same thing, you go C6 like that. Okay, so you make a black in dilemma whether to take this or to take that. Okay, if you take this, and then you get the queen faster lah. Okay, so that's the idea lah. If let's say you take you take what we call, you take this and then you give this pass through, because there are no more pawn cover this square lah, so the pawn will go through like that. So that is basically the thing lah. So that is what we call the breakthrough. What we call this is what we call breakthrough. So let me put here, this is what we call breakthrough. Okay, so if black is to move, the matter is different. If black to move, he wins. Black to move wins, because black will step into the square of the C pawn. Okay, the C pawn, you can see the C pawn. The C pawn, so the square is here. Okay, so if black to move, black just simply goes inside the square and just win lah, just win the thing. So here doesn't work lah, this thing doesn't work lah. Just this thing doesn't work lah, because you just capture like this, but this you need to make sure you need to capture the correct way lah. If you capture like this, is a blunder lah, because you can just do like this. Okay, if you take and then you go here you need to capture carefully, because if you make a wrong capture, then it's lost lah. You take with the C pawn. Okay, because if you do like this and then you capture like that lah, and then you just simply near enough lah. If let's say you are taking this and then you do like this, you just capture this, and this pawn, even though it's passed, but is inside the square of the king, so that's why it doesn't work. So the king move here, the king move here, the king move here, and then the pawn move here, the king move here, and they capture the pawn. So that's the idea lah. The idea why this thing win if black to move. So here the verdict is this: if let's say white to move, white win by playing this thing. This what we call the breakthrough. If black to play, black win by getting into the square of this pawn. Okay, of this pawn. So that this trick of playing this thing doesn't work, because you play like this, even though you play like this thing is still inside the square. Okay, it's inside the square of the pawn. So that is the breakthrough. Okay, so that's the breakthrough. So I think that is cover most of the thing lah. I think that's enough lah for today. It's already 12:30. So I think that is about the pawn in game.